Chapter 542. Chiu Wei Chung smacked his lips and laughed. Yes, head leader Chin. This is a few hundred taels of gold leaves. Even I am envious of it. Humph, Chin Feng laughed coldly. Gold leaves are just pleasing to the eye, but what use do they have in the incense order? Even if I give you all the gold leaves, will you be able to sleep at night? This. Chiu Wei Chung did not know how to answer, but he was still unwilling. This is hard to say. If I did not know, then so be it. But now that I know, I can't get a share of it. Does head leader Chin not want to get a share? Chin Feng laughed and waved his hand. We are all brothers of the grass division. How do you expect me to do it? Let's see the news from the pill spreading hall first. Also, let's see how this guy's martial arts are. It seems that head leader Chin does not believe this guy's words. Believe? That's strange. Chin Feng laughed and curled his lips. He is just a young man in his teens and not from any famous sect. Who knows better than me what the people of Rejuvenation Valley are like? Even that old man Nya may not be my match. How can he be my match? I can only fend off 2 Qingshi, but he can deal with 3. He's really bragging without fear of losing his teeth. You are wise, head leader. However, since he is able to deal with 2 Qingshis, he can be considered as one of the top few in our Tianmu Peak. Therefore, he is still useful. Let him stay here for a while. After a long time, we will find out more about him. All right, let's do as head leader says. Let's discuss the order of the battle. Well, actually, there's nothing much to say. The pill department will definitely send a Jin gang to fight. Let's just do as we discussed when we came here. I want to see how good he is. Anyway, we'll arrange 3 gambling fights for this guy. This way, we can cover Wu Dalong's mouth. Head leader, aren't 3 battles too many? Even you can only fight 3 rounds at most. Normally, 2 rounds are enough. Chin Feng laughed and waved his hand. No problem. Didn't that guy say he can handle 3 Qingshi? 3 battles are just right. Then which match should we bet on? Do you even need to ask? Of course, I'm betting on this guy for the first round. I don't have any confidence in the other 2 rounds, so don't bet. Let the brothers play. Oh, I know. The 2 of them slowly walked into the courtyard as they talked. As they walked further and further away, a head suddenly appeared under a tree. He looked at them from afar and was a little confused. Which match? What do you mean? Zhang Xiaohua returned to the side of the cliff and gazed at the misty mountain range. She couldn't help but laugh inwardly. This Qinfeng Xiao looks very straightforward on the surface, as if he's very concerned about me, but he's still secretly on his guard. He even has some intentions of controlling me. Isn't it just concocting pills? I'll just concoct pills for you. Why would I be afraid of you? Not to mention the 3 of you. Even if all of you came, wouldn't this young master still move a few more times? I'd like to see what powerful means you have that can surprise me. Not long after, a few disciples who were cleaning up the courtyard came over and asked her to check. Zhang Xiaohua didn't care about it and waved her hand to let them go. The dozen or so disciples didn't feel unhappy. Their eyes were full of envy when they looked at those people, as if their treatment made them jealous. Returning to the small courtyard, Zhang Xiaohua sat cross-legged in the courtyard under the warm sunlight, immersed in the pleasure of comprehending the way of heaven. It was only at this moment that she felt that her life hadn't been lost in vain. In the blink of an eye, the sun had already risen. Sitting in the small courtyard, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. She released her divine sense and saw Bai Huan walking over from outside the bamboo forest. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and got up to return to the house. She sat on the chair and waited for the arrival of this senior brother Bai. Not long after, she heard Bai Huan shouting outside, "Junior brother-in, are you in the courtyard?" Zhang Xiaohua said loudly, "Yes, senior brother Bai. Come in. Why are you so polite?" Bai Huan entered the courtyard and said, "Junior brother, you don't know. In the morning, Head Master Chin had already announced to the brothers of the Grass Division that if you don't agree, you can't enter this small courtyard. I don't want to be polite with you, but I can't not listen to headmaster's arrangements. Zhang Xiaohua raised her eyebrows and smiled. I see. Then I'll have to trouble you to shout before you come in. It's nothing, Bai Huan said, looking around. Junior brother, I don't want to criticize you, but what's so good about this place? It's so far away from anywhere. Why don't you move back and live with us? Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, It's just a temporary residence. Let's talk about it later. That's right. I knew headmaster wouldn't leave you here. This place is quiet during the day, but at night it's... Then he moved closer to Zhang Xiaohua's ear and said, I also know that you're here for the safety of the Golden Leaf. After this battle, I'm sure no one will have any ideas about the Golden Leaf anymore, right? Hee, how would I know that? Maybe there will be more people. Ahem, junior brother-in, let's not talk too much. Headmaster asked me to call you. The battle is about to start, and they're waiting for you. Oh, right. You still have to bring this bag with you. After saying that, he looked at the big bag on the table with great envy. Zhang Xiaohua knew that this big bag was Qin Fengxiao's bait. How could she not take it? So she walked to the front, picked it up, and said, Senior brother Bai, please lead the way. The place of the battle seemed not to be in the yard. Bai Huan led Zhang Xiaohua to walk along the mountain road outside the yard. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua thought of something and could not help asking, Senior brother Bai, I have something to ask. Bai Huan asked curiously, What's the matter? You wanted to ask yesterday. Just say it. Zhang Xiaohua said, I want to ask Senior brother Bai, what is the meaning of the elixir success rate? Bai Huan asked curiously, The elixir success rate is used by the elixir department to refine elixirs. How do you know it? Zhang Xiaohua said embarrassedly. In the morning, headmaster said that the elixir success rate of several executives of the elixir department was extremely high. I didn't quite understand and didn't dare to ask more. Senior brother Bai, you've been in our pill expanding hall for many years, so you naturally know it. Of course, there's nothing in this pill expanding hall that I don't know. Bai Huan said proudly. As the name suggests, the elixir success rate is the probability of refining elixirs successfully. Zhang Xiaohua pretended not to know and asked curiously, Is there a time when refining elixirs is unsuccessful? Of course, the most important thing in refining elixirs is to control the temperature of the furnace. If you're not careful, all the herbs in the furnace will turn into ashes. Moreover, the time of adding the herbs and the proportion of the mixture will also affect the refining of the elixir. Many times, the elixir produced will have no effect or very poor effect, which is also a failure. Oh, I see. Zhang Xiaohua looked thoughtful and said to herself, It turns out that the executives of the pill expanding hall only have a 50% chance of success when refining elixirs. I haven't failed yet. Zhang Xiaohua's little tail was raised quietly again. Then, what about the disciples of our elixir department? Their elixir success rate? Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously again. Humph, Bai Huan snorted and said, They don't have any elixir success rate. Look at their arrogant faces. They think that only the elixir department can refine elixirs in the whole pill expanding hall. They just boil the elixirs. Even I can do it. Who can't? That's right. I didn't like them when I came to the dining room yesterday. They all had their noses in the air. Our brothers of the grass department are more low-key. They are the real, capable ones. Zhang Xiaohua's little flattery made Bai Huan feel very comfortable. She increasingly felt that this little junior brother was pleasing to the eye. As expected, the place of the gambling fight was not in the yard, but on another vast lawn. At this moment, hundreds of people were sitting on the lawn. They were divided into two groups and surrounded the open space in the middle. As soon as Zhang Xiaohua appeared, the whole messy place immediately became silent. Hundreds of pairs of eyes stared straight at Zhang Xiaohua. Ahem, no, they were staring at the huge bag in Zhang Xiaohua's hand. Zhang Xiaohua subconsciously wrapped her arms around the bag and held it in her arms. At this time, everyone reluctantly moved their eyes away and whispered to each other in an instant. Bai Huan familiarly led Zhang Xiaohua to the left side of the open space. There were already a few people who looked very strong sitting on the ground casually. When they saw Zhang Xiaohua coming over, they didn't get up. Bai Huan had to take Zhang Xiaohua to them and introduce them to Zhang Xiaohua one by one. They were the 6 great arhats of the grass department. Those people looked at Zhang Xiaohua and nodded slightly. Zhang Xiaohua also snorted a few times and just nodded like them. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua like this, several so-called arhats frowned slightly and expressed their dissatisfaction. Seeing this, Bai Huan panicked and quietly poked Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua didn't care and just pretended not to see it. Bai Huan had no choice but to point to the few people in the front row and introduce them one by one. They were the 10 great guardian warriors of the pill department. Among them, Cheng Shi was half squatting there with gritted teeth. He was holding a huge dog's tail grass in his hand and biting it fiercely, as if he could vent the anger in his chest by doing so. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and was about to ask Bai Huan when she saw Qin Fengxiao, Qiu Weiqing, and Wu Zhouxiu in the distance, accompanying 5 hale and hearty old men with white hair and beards walking over. Seeing them appear, the disciples who were sitting casually on the ground all stood up and stood there in an orderly manner to welcome their arrival. These are the 5 consecrators of our pill-spreading hall on Tianmu Peak. They have all been in the inner sanctum before and can be considered the most respected people on Tianmu Peak. All the gambling fights are decided by them. Bai Huan moved closer to Zhang Xiaohua and whispered in her ear. The 5 consecrators, accompanied by Qin Fengxiao and the other 2, walked to the 5 tables on the empty ground. They did not stand on ceremony and sat down skillfully. A few disciples had already served them fragrant tea. Then Qin Fengxiao clasped his hands at the 5 consecrators and nodded at the Wu Zhou ruins. He said loudly, "Brothers from the Grass Division and Pill Division, please take a seat. The battle officially begins." -3. Chapter 543. When the disciples below the stage heard the announcement, they all jumped up and cheered loudly as if they'd been injected with chicken blood. Zhang Xiaohua, who was sitting at the front, jumped from the excitement and was instantly drowned in the sea of cheers. Looking at the disciples around her in a very terrifying manner, Zhang Xiaohua sighed inwardly. "AI, people with no aspirations are truly pitiful. It's just a simple gambling fight, and they're already so happy." If there's a cheerleading squad, before she could form her thoughts, she saw a dozen or so disciples dressed in martial attire scurry out from the shadows. Some were empty-handed, some were holding swords, some were holding sabers, and a few were holding wooden sticks that were as tall as eyebrows. When they walked to different positions in the open space, they cupped their hands in salute to the surroundings. They were like entertainers in the Jianghu, performing a routine that looked impressive but was useless. In an instant, Zhang Xiaohua's train of thought stopped and her mouth almost couldn't close. This gambling fight was a bit too gaudy. However, when she saw the acrobatic disciples, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly thought of the entertainer she'd saved in Lu Town called Chu Zhigao. This person seemed to know a bit about pills and had given her a shabby pill recipe that seemed to be recorded on silk. What was its name again? At that time, she'd only just come into contact with the art of pill refinement and didn't know the meaning behind it. She'd long forgotten the name of the pill and just casually tossed it into her clothes. Later, when she received the money pouch, she threw it into the space and didn't pay attention to it anymore. Now that she'd made some small progress in pill refinement, she should take it out and have a look when she had time. Perhaps there would be an unexpected surprise. That's right, this Chu Zhigao seemed to live in Dragon Mountain. She'd never heard of this place before. She'd forgotten to ask Niechinu when she was in Rejuvenation Valley. Otherwise, if she had time, she could pay a visit. Perhaps there would be some opportunity. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua's hand couldn't help but touch the money pouch in her clothes. Not long after, the performers bowed and left the stage. The audience cheered again, but this cheering caused Zhang Xiaohua to look at them with disdain. "Sai, why don't you read more books about medicinal herbs when you have nothing better to do? It's good to have some self-restraint." Wasting your youth here for no reason. It's so sad. At this moment, Wu Zhouxiu gestured with his hands and raised his voice. All right, the highly anticipated battle between the Pill Division and the Grass Division of Tianmu Peak will now officially begin. I believe everyone already knew this morning. Oh, perhaps many of the senior and junior brothers already received the news last night. This battle will not be the same as usual. Why do I say so? To be specific, there are two differences. First, the brothers of the Grass Division have new blood. Just yesterday, yes. To be specific, last night, the Grass Division gained a new fierce general. He is Rin Xiaoyao. Come, junior brother Rin, please rise and let the disciples admire your might. After he finished speaking, he gestured towards Zhang Xiaohua. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua was extremely helpless. This young master wants to keep a low profile. With your introduction, I still have to lower my head. Also, admire, why does this phrase sound so awkward? Zhang Xiaohua stood up and bowed to the surrounding disciples. Immediately, the Grass Division people cheered, while the Pill Division people booed. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua sit down, Wu Zhouxiu said again, Yesterday, when junior brother Rin came, he had a good fight with our Pill Division's Cheng Shi. Of course, we are all hot-blooded men. We pay attention to the principle of no discord, no concord. Last night, although our Pill Division's Cheng Shi suffered a small loss at the hands of junior brother Rin, Cheng Shi has already told me in private. He said that junior brother Rin is a good brother, a true man. At the side, Cheng Shi had a toothache expression as he muttered in his heart, Delang is too good at deceiving people. When did I open my heart to him? When did I reach such a noble state? Good, the Grass Division and Pill Division disciples cheered. No one knew why the Pill Division disciples were cheering. Were they cheering for Zhang Xiaohua for teaching Cheng Shi a lesson? Wu Zhouxiu liked this kind of atmosphere very much. He straightened his 5-foot-tall body and took half a step forward. Yesterday, junior apprentice brother Rin said that he would let whoever let him eat vegetables. Whoever took his gold, he would let them have their gold back. I agree with this sentence wholeheartedly. Cheng Shi offended junior apprentice brother Rin yesterday. There is nothing to say. Bring it over. As he said this, he waved his hand at the disciples of the pill department. A disciple held a tray with a few jade bottles on it and handed it to Wu Zhouxiu. Wu Zhouxiu took it and showed it to everyone. He said, Here is a bottle of blood replenishing pill, blood coagulating pill, small bone strengthening pill, and small bone congealing pill. Small bone congealing pill? Zhang Xiaohua was startled and thought, This name sounds very familiar. I seem to have heard it somewhere before. Thinking about it carefully, wasn't this the pill recipe that Chu Zhigao gave her earlier? She was just wondering what kind of pill it was. Now that she heard it, it was really a coincidence. However, this was the small bone congealing pill. According to alchemy practice, it should be a replica of the bone congealing pill. Just as Zhang Xiaohua was frowning, Qin Feng, who was at the side, asked with a smile, Wu Dalon, I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it. Wu Zhouxiu seemed to have known that he would ask this question. He smiled and said, Does Head Qin think that these 4 bottles of pills are not worth enough? Qin Feng smiled and nodded. That's right. Yesterday, my Grass Division's junior brother Rin asked for 50 taels of gold. Wah! Everyone below the stage was in an uproar. Although they had heard about the amount of gold yesterday, no one believed it. Some said it was only 5 taels of gold, while others said it was 50 taels of silver. In short, everyone felt that the 50 taels of gold was just a rumor. Now that they heard Head Chen and Wu Dalong talk about it face to face, they couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Wu Zhouxiu was not surprised. He held up the plate with his left hand and said to everyone, Junior brothers, look at this plate of mine. There are 5 bottles on it. That is to say, there is still a bottle of pills. What kind of pill is that? It can actually be compared to a few dozen taels of gold? That's right. Those 4 bottles of pills, if estimated, are worth at most 10 taels of gold. I can't guess. When will our pill division be able to refine such a valuable pill? Chun Feng frowned. He was only an expert in medicinal herbs and only knew about pills. He really couldn't guess what Wu Dalong was selling in his gourd. He could only smile and say, Dalong, don't keep us in suspense. Let me see a pill worth a few dozen taels of gold. Wu Zhoushu smiled proudly and said, This last bottle contains our fragrance division's famous Yuhuandan pill. Uffed. Before Chin Feng could say anything, the consecrators sitting behind the table spat out the tea in their mouths. A few of them even stood up in surprise while coughing and said, Dalong, where did you get the Yuhuandan pill? Someone pointed at Wu Zhoushu and scolded, You prodigal Dalong. This Yuhuandan pill is a sacred medicine for inner disciples to heal their injuries. How can it be exchanged with gold? How can you lose it to someone else? Chen Feng's face also showed a strange expression, a rare look of greed in his eyes. Seeing everyone like this, Wu Zhoushu became even more arrogant and said loudly, Consecrators, brothers, please don't be impatient. Let me finish. If it was the real Yuhuandan pill, I wouldn't be willing to take it out even if you gave me 100 taels of gold. Although this is a Yuhuandan pill, it's a wasted pill refined by an inner sect elder. Oh, I see. When the consecrators heard this, they sat down once again. They were all cursing in their hearts. This scoundrel is bad. You should have said earlier that it's a cripple. You've even spat on your clothes. How uncultured. Chun Feng squinted his eyes and listened to Wu Zhoushu. Although this pill is wasted, it was refined by an inner sect elder after all. The herbs used are all full-grown and have sufficient healing effects. Even the herbs used are worth a few dozen taels of gold, right? Then he said to Chin Feng with a smile, Head Chin, do you think these 5 bottles of pills are worth 50 taels of gold? Chun Feng nodded and said, Dalong's explanation means that even the 5 consecrators agree. I naturally have no objections. Wu Zhoushu smiled, That's good. Come, let's invite junior brother Rin to come on stage and take away all these pills, lest you say that the disciples of the Dan department don't keep their words. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Chen Feng, who nodded with a smile. Zhang Xiaohua went on stage and took all 5 bottles of pills. She put them in her arms and said, Dalong is indeed a man of his word. The brothers of the Dan department are good brothers. Let's end yesterday's matter here. Don't. Wu Zhoushu quickly stopped her. Junior brother Rin, this is just the beginning. It's too early to say that it's over. Chin Feng smiled and said, Junior brother Rin, you go down first. You'll know when you go on stage. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said to herself, This guy still wants to set a trap for Dalong at this time. Then she nodded and walked down. From the stage to the stage, Zhang Xiaohua felt countless gazes were like sharp swords, piercing into the jade bottle in her arms. Nonsense, this was the Yuhuandan pill. Although it was a waste, it was still a treasure. After Zhang Xiaohua left the stage, Wu Zhoushu said again, That was the first difference. Next, I'll talk about the second difference. That is, in this gambling fight, the prize for the participants of the Dan department and the Grass department is 50 taels of gold. It can only be more, not less. Wow! Cheers and surprised voices filled the stage again. The gambling fight between the Dan department and the Grass department of the Tianmu Peak had been going on for a long time. Usually the prize was just a few pills, and sometimes even some herbs. It was just for entertainment. Now that they heard Wu Zhoushu's words, how could they not be excited? It was as if everyone could see the dazzling 50 taels of gold in front of their eyes. Chun Feng and Chiu Wei Cheng stood beside Wu Zhoushu without any change in expression. It should have been discussed yesterday. The 5 consecrators beside them also frowned and looked at each other, not knowing if they should speak. At this time, the 5 feet tall Wu Zhoushu coughed a few times, cleared his throat, and said, All right, I'll stop talking about the 2 changes. Next, I'll talk about the 4 great disciplines and the 9 precautions. Chin Feng smiled bitterly. -3. Chapter 544. Wu Zhoushu's speech was like an old granny's foot binding cloth, smelly and long, until all the disciples in the field were drowsy and the 5 consecrators on the field were dozing off. Only then did he end. Wu Zhoushu said, "All right, my speech ends here. The rest of the time will be handed over to Head Master Qin." Immediately, the drowsy disciples below the field were energized. The 5 consecrators on the field immediately raised their heads and clapped at the same time, making Zhang Xiaohua confused. Weren't these people all asleep just now? Why were they still listening? Chen Fengxiao listened and said loudly, "Thank you, Wu Dalong, for your brilliant speech, explaining the importance and necessity of this gambling fight in detail. As for me, I don't plan to say much, but on initiative I would like to add 2 points. Instantly, the disciples below the field returned to their drowsy state. The consecrators on the field also returned to their dozing state. Zhang Xiaohua also looked down and started to comprehend the rabbit talisman in her Naiwen. Palace, not knowing how long had passed, Qin Fengxiao said, "All right, I will stop here. I wish this gambling fight a perfect, smooth, high-quality, high-value ending." All right, everyone in the field returned to their lively and energetic state. Oh my, Zhang Xiaohua understood this time. These people were already used to it. Following that, Qin Fengxiao and Wu Zhoushu looked at each other, and their eyes shrunk. They took out a brocade pouch, walked to one of the 5 consecrators, and handed the brocade pouch to that person. That old consecrator also stood up solemnly and stretched out his hand to receive it. Then Qin Fengxiao and Wu Zhoushu left the field and returned to the grass department and Dan department respectively. At this time, a disciple walked over from the side, holding a sealed box in his hand, and placed it on the table in front of the consecrator. The consecrator carefully placed the brocade pouch into the box, looked around, and laughed loudly. "The order of these 10 matches has been decided. Please place your bets." Bet? Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but be stunned. At this time, Qin Fengxiao had already sat down beside Zhang Xiaohua. He said in a low voice, "The prize of the gambling fight is taken out by the 2 participants. Whoever wins will naturally get the prize of the other. However, the disciples outside the field won't get any benefits. Therefore, they have to open a bet for them to take out their elixirs and choose which side to support. If the side they support loses, they won't get their elixirs back. If they win, they can get the elixirs of those who lose." Zhang Xiaohua understood a little, but she immediately asked curiously, "Boss Qin, there are so many people here. Won't it be troublesome to place a bet? Moreover, if I bet that the grass division will win, I will only bet 1 elixir, and the others bet that the pill division will win. Everyone will also bet 1 elixir. After the winner is decided, how will the elixirs be divided?" Chen Fengxiao pointed at the many disciples who were running around with cloth bags, paper, and brushes and said, "Look, these are the disciples who are preparing to record and accept the elixirs. They are all very familiar with this, so there's no need to go through too much trouble. According to what Brotherin said, if you win, you will win all of the other people's elixirs. However, if you lose, your elixir will be divided equally among the others. As for how to divide equally, we have a set of methods that have been used for a long time, and everyone is very convinced." Zhang Xiaohua understood that the eyes of the crowd were as sharp as snow. If she was the only one who bet to win, she would definitely lose, and the other people's investment would definitely result in very little results. At this time, looking at the many people who were running down the field, she quickly reached the end of the list of disciples. Presumably, they had finished counting the bets. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly thought of something and asked softly, "But before the list of names for the battle is announced, we don't know who will be fighting who. How can we choose the contestant that we like?" Qin Fengxiao shrugged and said, "If it's not the grass division, then it's the pill division. There are only these 2 choices. It's up to the heavens." Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. It seemed that this was the only way. If they knew who would be fighting, they would know the level of their martial arts. How could anyone bet that they would definitely lose? Sure enough, After a disciple collected the detailed records of everyone's bets, he directly brought it to the field. Among the 5 consecrated elders, the leftmost one also picked up a small wooden box from the ground and solemnly kept the records. After closing the lid, he took out a lock from his chest and carefully locked it before placing it on the table. Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, Headmaster Qin, are these 5 old consecrated elders not going to bet? Chen Fengxiao looked at the 5 solemn old consecrated elders on the stage and said with a smile, they are the judges of the battle. Naturally, they can't affect the fairness of the battle because of their likes and dislikes. So, although they want to participate, they can't be allowed to. Of course, they will take a cut for every battle. Do you think they will work for free? Zhang Xiaohua also chuckled and didn't say anything. Who would like to work for free? When all the preparations were in place, the entire field was silent. Everyone looked at the consecrated elder in the middle. Chen Fengxiao said in a low voice, this consecrated elder's surname is Lei. He is the oldest among the 5 consecrated elders. His alchemy skills are also the best. So, our pill department and grass department unanimously elected him to be the main judge. Consecrator Lei took a sip of tea, cleared his throat, and solemnly opened the small box in front of him. He picked up a brocade pouch and took out a slip of paper. After looking at it, he read aloud, Dan Division's first disciple is Yao Ping. At this moment, a tall and sturdy person was picked out from the pill department's disciples. He walked into the field and walked a few steps as if he was demonstrating his power. He shook the muscles on his arms and then cast a provocative look in Zhang Xiaohua's direction. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua didn't even look at him. This look was like casting pearls before swine. Zhang Xiaohua turned and asked Chen Fengxiao, Leader, who is this simple-minded muscular man? Chen Fengxiao looked at the pill department's rising momentum and then looked at Yao Ping, who was baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. He smiled and said, This guy is the number 2 of the 10 great guardian deities. He has some skills. If you go against him, you have to be careful. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and frowned. Leader, I suddenly thought of something. The pill department's 10 great guardian deities and our grass department's 6 great arhats. Are they ranked based on martial arts or age? Of course, it's based on martial arts. Qiu Weicheng did not wait for Qin Fengxiao to open his mouth and continued. This Yao Ping used to be the eldest of the 9 great guardian deities. However, Zhou Shuming came and fought with him for 300 moves before Zhou Shuming defeated him and took the title of Great Guardian Deity. Yao Ping had to settle for 2nd place, and the other 8 deities were all ranked behind. Haha! Only that Cheng Shi, who was originally called Honest, is worthy of his name. He is the 10th. Chen Fengxiao chuckled. Our 6 great arhats are the same? Yes, most of them were poached from the other peaks of Tianmu Peak. They are all characters who are not willing to submit to others. How can they not compete? Little brother, now that you've come, you have the strength to fight for the title of Great Arhot. Look, about 1 zhang to your left. The short and shrewd one is our grass division's Great Arhot, Lu Fengming. When he heard about your arrival, he didn't sleep well last night, afraid that you would challenge him. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he released his spiritual awareness and saw that Lu Fengming was looking at the stage. From time to time, the corner of his eyes slanted in his direction, as if he was observing him. Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, What's the point of arguing about the title of Great Arhut? Little brother has just arrived at Tianmu Peak, so you don't know much. Although our Chuanxiang order is not in Jianghu, but the benefits of our disciples cannot be lacking. Although ordinary things like gold and silver have no use here, but pills and other things cannot be lacking. Otherwise, wouldn't everyone be too busy? Tianmu Peak's ordinary disciples have the same treatment as ordinary disciples, but the Dan department's King Kong and Grass department's Arhut naturally have different treatment. Moreover, according to the ranking, the treatment is very different. If Lu Fengming's title of Great Arhat is taken by you, his daily expenses and pills will be much less. Do you think he won't argue with you? Oh, so that's how it is. Zhang Xiaohua immediately understood and said to Qiu Weiqing, Senior Qiu, I have a message for you to pass to Lu Fengming. Is it a challenge? Junior brother Rin, if it is so after this battle, let the head arrange it for you. With your martial arts, the title of Great Arhat will be yours. Yes, little brother. If you didn't tell me this morning, I was afraid that you would drive me away. Chun Feng said half-jokingly. It's not like that. Zhang Xiaohua shook his head and said, I want Senior Qiu to tell Lu Fengming that I will not fight with him for the title of Great Arhat. Even if it is any other Arhat, I will not fight for it. Why is that? Qiu Weiqing did not understand. Chun Feng smiled and said confidently, Is it because little brother disdains it? Zhang Xiaohua shook his head and said, It's not because I disdain it. The specific reason, I think you will know after a while. Chun Feng smiled and looked at Qiu Weiqing. Both of them did not understand. At this time, Yao Ping of the Dan department had shown off enough. He stood on the empty ground and did not move. He got into a stance and quietly waited for his opponent to enter the arena. Lei Gongfeng saw that the atmosphere of the arena had been adjusted. He then stood up unhurriedly and opened the sealed box. He took out another brocade bag and took out a piece of paper. But when he saw the name written on it, he could not help but turn pale with fright. He immediately raised his head and looked at Chun Feng, who was below the arena. Chun Feng seemed to know about this situation. He met Lei Gongfeng's gaze and nodded slightly. After receiving Chun Feng's confirmation, Lei Gongfeng secretly sighed. He raised his head and looked at Wu Zhouxiu, who was looking at him with a strange gaze. Thus he cleared his throat and said loudly, The first disciple of the grass department to fight is Lu Quan. What? Lu Quan? How can it be Lu Quan? Only the sixth of the 6 Arhats, Lu Quan, who is the weakest in the grass department. Not only Wu Zhouxiu and Yao Ping, even the disciples of the Dan department and grass department were holed up and shouting, Vote for me. Come, there are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. -3. Chapter 545. When they heard that the first one to go on stage was not the popular figure of the grass division, Zhang Xiaohua, the whole place was in an uproar. The most important thing was that the disciples who had bet on the grass division were making a big fuss. Wasn't this cheating them? The second King Kong of the pill division, Lu Fengming, versus the 6th Arhat of the grass division, Lu Quan. How could the grass division possibly win? Wu Zhouxiu also had a strange expression on his face. He walked up to the stage and asked loudly, Leader Qin, shouldn't you give our pill division? Oh no, give all of our disciples an explanation. Chun Feng Xiao was not afraid at all. He walked up to the stage and said with a smile, Dalong, your request is too simple. Even if you didn't say it, I would have come up to explain. Then he raised his voice and said, I have discussed with Dalong yesterday to let our grass division's Rin Xiaoyao go on stage. However, this is a bet between our pill division and the grass division. When we arrange for junior brother Rin to go on stage, we have to consider the overall effect and not just junior brother Ren's own interests. Dalong, please rest assured that junior brother Rin will definitely go on stage. The conditions that I have promised you will definitely be fulfilled. But, Wu Zhouxiu said but for a long time, but he couldn't say anything. Yes, the grass division had agreed to let Rin Xiaoyao go on stage. However, the order of the battle wasn't like his own wishful thinking. Any battle would be fine. He remembered that when he told Chun Fengxiao about it, he didn't specify which battle it was. Then Chun Feng smiled and faced the disciples of the pill and grass divisions. He cupped his hands and said, Brothers, I'm sure everyone knows that the strength of the grass division is much weaker than that of the pill division. There's no need to hide this. Junior brother Ren's participation will definitely allow the strength of the grass division to grow wings. The order of the battle has always been particular. I'm sure everyone knows this. Therefore, We've arranged for Junior Brother Rin to fight in the next round or the next round. Moreover, most importantly, our Junior Brother Rin will participate 3 times. Each time, the prize will be 50 taels of gold. This is the agreement between me and Wu Dalong, and it is also the agreement between Junior Brother Rin and the pill department. We will definitely fulfill the agreement. I believe, and you all must also believe, that with Junior Brother Ren's participation, the most important battle on Tianmu Peak will be even more attractive and interesting. Don't you think so? Nonsense. Since the leader of the Grass Division had spoken, how could the disciples of the Grass Division not raise their hands in agreement? Immediately everyone cheered. Great! Exciting! We want exciting! When the disciples of the pill department saw that Wu Zhouxiu didn't say anything, and then thought about the more exciting battles in the future, they were all eager to give it a try. After everyone had quieted down, Qin Feng turned his head and asked Consecrator Lei, "Old Consecrator Lei, may I ask if this arrangement violates the rules of the previous battle?" Consecrator Lei nodded and said, "Of course not. There are also 10 pieces of paper in the silk pouch. It's no different from before." Then Qin Feng smiled and asked Wu Zhouxiu, "What do you think, Dalong?" What could Wu Zhouxiu say? Although he gritted his teeth in hatred, Qin Feng's words were reasonable and his actions were reasonable. He could only grit his teeth and swallow it. Fortunately, he didn't draw lots in the morning. Otherwise, he would have lost a lot of face. Wu Zhouxiu expressionlessly flicked his sleeves and retreated from the arena, sitting down casually. Chen Fengxiao also walked back to his original position. He waved his hand, and a short and agile man on his right flashed out from the crowd with a whoosh and jumped straight onto the field. It was the 6th Arhat of the grass sect, Lu Quan. Chen Feng walked to Zhang Xiaohua's side and said, "Little brother, I let you go up 3 times without your consent. You don't have any complaints in your heart, do you?" Complaints? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and thought, "You still have the nerve to say that. The one that the pill department wants to challenge is me, not the 6 great guardian deities of the Grass Division. You guys interfered for no reason and let me earn less pills. Of course, I have complaints." However, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Of course not. Yesterday, little brother was the representative of the first master. How can I say irresponsible words now?" Qin Feng was very happy when he heard this and said, "Actually, Wu Dalong is just coveting little brother's golden leaves. He already gave little brother some pills just now. When little brother goes up later, as long as he wins the first round, even if he loses the next 2 rounds, it will still be a draw. I also thought of this, so I agreed to Wu Dalong's suggestion. This was also something that happened in the afternoon, so I didn't have time to inform little brother." Zhang Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "It's fine, it's fine. It's just 3 rounds. If it really can't be done, I'll admit defeat." Actually, he had already calculated in his heart. 3 rounds meant that he could win 150 taels of gold. And it wasn't a small amount. It was equivalent to the salary of a manservant in the Huan Shi Manor for many years. However, he immediately thought of a question. "First Master, does this wager have to be taken out in advance for every battle?" Qin Feng pointed at the 2 people who were already fighting and said, "There's no need. Look at these 2 people. They're both going up first. After the battle, they'll hand over the wager. If there's any unfairness, or if they refuse to hand over the wager, then we'll find the 5 judges to judge. Also, First Master, you've racked your brains to arrange the order of battle. Is there anything to say about whether the pill division or the grass division wins?" Qin Feng smiled and nodded. "That's right. Our Tian Mu Peak's pill division and grass division have always been competing. We've set the rules a long time ago. If the grass division and grass division each win 5 rounds, then no one will have to give the other any wager. But if the grass division wins 6 rounds and the pill division wins 4, then the pill division will have to give the grass division 20% of the wager. If the grass division wins 7 rounds and the pill division wins 3, then the pill division will have to give the grass division 40% of the wager. And so on and so forth until the grass division has to give the grass division all the wager. Ah, they've calculated it this way. This amount isn't small. Then Zhang Xiaohua looked at Lu Quan, who was already on the verge of collapsing, and said, "Looks like the grass division has lost quite a lot in the past." Qin Feng smiled and nodded. "That's right. We don't have enough manpower, and our martial arts are generally weaker than the pill divisions. Even if we use some strategies, we're always at a disadvantage." Then he smiled and said, "However, even though the wager in the past was not small, it's much smaller compared to this time. Hee, 10 battles, 50 taels of gold for each round. 20% is 100 taels of gold. Little brother, as long as you can win 2 rounds, the grass division will win back all the pills we've lost in the past." Zhang Xiaohua came to a sudden realization. He had originally thought that his little abacus was already quite good, but compared to Qin Fengxiao it was really quite lacking. Of course, true knowledge comes from practice. If I haven't reached the height of the first master, how can I plan so many things and plan so meticulously? Zhang Xiaohua comforted himself. While they were talking, the battle in the arena had basically come to an end. The two of them were opponents who had fought for many years. The difference in their martial arts was obvious. Even though they were all from the same sect and couldn't casually use heavy blows, this short period of time was enough for Yao Ping to defeat Lu Quan. Yao Ping could be seen using the barbaric move, White Crane drying its wings and cleverly adding a sweeping kick to flip Lu Quan to the ground. Then he kicked him out of the arena. However, Yao Ping, who had won, wasn't very satisfied. Not only did he have an unfair advantage in the battle with Lu Quan, the wager of 50 taels of gold would definitely be greatly reduced. Not to mention that he wouldn't be able to get the golden leaf in Zhang Xiaohua's hands. He wouldn't even be able to get the ruined Yuhuandan pill either. He really dirted his good luck this morning. Yao Ping looked unhappily at the expressionless faces outside the arena and waved his fist provocatively. Only then did he leave the arena, helplessly. Perhaps he could only think about it next time. But would it still be 50 taels of gold next time? Seeing that the battle had ended, Consecrated Lay stood up and loudly announced, "The first battle, Yao Ping of the Pill Division wins." Then he rushed into the arena and said, "The second battle is about to begin. Disciples, please place your bets." Just as he finished speaking, many disciples who were recording the battle entered the arena. This time, the disciples were very hesitant. They weren't as enthusiastic as before. Of course, there were still many rich disciples who chose to place their bets. After all the procedures were completed, Consecrated Lay took out the brocade pouch from the box. He took out a piece of paper and read, "The grass division's candidate for the second battle is Si Huinan." Then, from Qin Fengxiao's right-hand side, a slightly fat man jumped into the arena. Instantly, the pill division's Wu Zhoushu's face turned pale. He stared at Qin Fengxiao in a daze and pretended to gnash his teeth. Zhang Xiaohua was about to ask when Consecrated Lay took out another piece of paper and shouted, "The pill division's candidate for the second battle is Su Anong." Instantly, the pill division's disciples were in an uproar. The grass division's disciples were excited. Qiu Wei Cheng explained in a low voice, "Brother Ren, this Si Huinan is our grass division's 4th Arhut. Su Anong is the pill division's 9th Arhut. Ha ha ha! Si Huinan's martial arts is slightly higher than Su Andong's. In the previous 10 battles, Si Huinan won 7 of them. The first master's foresight is really amazing. He had already guessed that if Brother Rin were to fight, you would definitely not be able to fight in the second battle. We would definitely send the weakest Lu Quan to make up the numbers. They would then send Su Anong, who is just enough to win against Lu Quan. Not only would he win the battle, he would also save his energy. Thus, the first master did the opposite and sent Si Huinan, who just won against Su Anong." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and thought to himself, All of the pill department's arrangements were based on the fact that I was the first to appear. The grass department knew about the pill department's arrangements, so they feinted and let Lu Quan appear first, completely messing up the pill department's plans. This is what they call the mantis, stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Sure enough, with Chen Fengxiao's confidence and Wu Zhouxiu's unwillingness, the two of them fought for almost the time it took to eat a meal before the grass division won. Thank you. Come. -3. Chapter 546. It wasn't until Si Huinan barely defeated Su Enong that Zhang Xiaohua had a better understanding of the martial arts of the grass division. Si Huinan was ranked 4th in the grass division. He was only slightly stronger than Su Enong, who was ranked 9th in the Dan division. In other words, any one of the top 5 of the 10 great guardian deities could easily tie or win against an opponent from the grass division. It could be seen how weak the grass division was on Tianmu Peak. It could also be understood why Chen Fengxiao was pleasantly surprised when he saw that his skills were not bad. It could also be understood why he protected him in every possible way in the dining hall and even offended Wu Dalong from the Dan division. Soon, the third battle also began with Lei Gongfeng's loud voice. This battle was even more shocking. The Dan division sent out the great guardian deity Zhou Shuming. As for the grass division, it was still not Zhang Xiaohua. Instead, it was Chen Fengxiao, the head Qin, who surprised everyone. Hearing the names of the two people, Wu Dalong from the Dan division almost foamed at the mouth. He cried out weakly, "Head Qin, how can you be so shameless? You actually want to compete with the people?" Chen Fengxiao had already expected that Wu Zhouxiu would ask such a question. He shrugged helplessly and said innocently, "There's no other way. Dalong, you also know that a clever housewife can't cook without rice. There are only so many people in the grass division. If I don't rush to the front, how can I let my brothers rush to the front? At the crucial moment, I still have to let them see the power of an example. Furthermore, junior apprentice brother Rin came all the way to our Tianmu Peak and must be exhausted. We can't possibly let him fight right from the start. That would make it seem as if I, as the first master, am not sympathetic towards my brother. Therefore, I can only fight this round." Wu Zhouxiu was speechless. Although the grass tribe had always been suppressed by the Dan tribe, why was there still the existence of this bet? One of the key factors was that Chen Fengxiao was the #1 expert of the Tianmu Peak. Even the 10 great Vajras were not his opponent. Even Wu Zhouxiu was slightly inferior to Chen Fengxiao. Therefore, the great Vajra Zhou Shuming, who was enough to shock all the Arhats of the grass tribe, was destined to die just like that. The outcome of this battle was already decided even without the need for a duel. The people on Tianmu Peak did not have much interest in watching the duel, but only Zhang Xiaohua released her divine sense to carefully observe the fists, kicks, and internal energy of these two famous figures on Tianmu Peak. By the time Qin Fengxiao defeated Zhou Shuming, she had already gained a deep understanding of their martial arts. That's all. Of course, this was understandable. After all, they were both people who had failed to become outer disciples. Even if they had practiced martial arts for many years, how could they enter the eyes of a Qi practitioner of the immortal path like Zhang Xiaohua? The next two duels were also boring. Under Chen Fengxiao's reasonable arrangements, the grass tribe's Wu Zicheng, who was ranked 5th, lost to the Dan tribe's Zhou Peng, who was ranked 3rd. The other duel was great Arhat Lu Fengmeng, who defeated the Dan tribe's Wang Yanhai, who was ranked 4th. The difference in strength between these two duels was rather large. It did not take long for the victor to be decided. Consecrated Lei announced loudly, "This afternoon's duel will end here. We will continue tomorrow. Heads, please come over and seal the records." The disciples of the Dan tribe and the grass tribe all stood up. Chen Fengxiao, who had a proud face, and Wu Zhouxiu, who had a dispirited face, walked forward. They each took out a small and exquisite lock from their bosoms and locked the box in front of consecrated Lei. The 5 consecrated elders of the Judgment Division took all the records and left first. After they left, the disciples dispersed. However, the expressions of the disciples of the 2 tribes were very similar to their heads. Some were full of interest and chatted cheerfully, as if they had just passed an extraordinary afternoon. On the other hand, the other side was listless. Even if they were whispering to each other, their voices were low. They had lost their drive. After the normal disciples had all left, Wu Zhouxiu brought the 10 great arhats to Qin Fengxiao. He smiled bitterly and said, "Head Qin, you have played me so badly. In this afternoon there were 5 duels, and you actually lost to junior brother Rin in one. I don't even know what to say to you." Qin Fengxiao also brought Qiu Weicheng, Zhang Xiaohua, and the 6 great arhats to welcome him. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for letting me win. Thank you for letting me win. Wu Dalong, has your Dan tribe not won enough against our grass tribe? It wasn't easy for us to vent our anger, and you're so unhappy?" Wu Zhouxiu shook his head and said, "If my Dan tribe's martial arts were not as good as your grass tribe's, then so be it. But it just so happened that your grass tribe took advantage of us without waiting for Wu Zhouxiu to finish." Qin Fengxiao waved his hand and said, "Dalong, you're wrong. The best strategy is the best strategy. As long as the strategy is right, a weak army can also defeat a strong general. Forget it. I haven't seen you say this before. You only said it when junior brother-in came. However, the stakes of these 10 duels are really too big. You've really gotten it. To Dalong, it's just a drop in the ocean, isn't it? Hee, it's not even the end yet. Head Qin, are you so confident? There are still 5 duels tomorrow. My Dan tribe still has 5 brothers who have not fought yet. The outcome is still unknown." Wu Zhouxiu retorted without holding back. Qin Fengxiao waved his hand indifferently. "The name list has already been given to consecrated lay. Neither you nor I can change it. Let's wait for tomorrow's duel." "Well said. Let's go. Junior brothers, we may be opponents on the duel, but we're still brothers off the duel. Let's go and have a few drinks?" "Sure, that's exactly what I was thinking. Junior brother-in has just arrived and hasn't met all of you senior brothers yet. This is a good opportunity. Drink?" Zhang Xiaohua's head hurt when she heard this. What was so good about that? It was unbearably spicy and smelled bad. She really wasn't interested. Zhang Xiaohua tugged on Qin Fengxiao's sleeve and bowed to the others. "Senior brothers, it's my first time here, so I should toast to all of you. However, I'm still young and haven't drunk yet. I really don't like it. Moreover, the senior brothers of the Dan tribe must also know that the great master and Dalong have arranged 3 duels for me tomorrow. Each duel has a prize of 50 taels of gold. Do you think I won't feel burdened? Therefore, I won't accompany you. I'll go back early to rest and recover my energy. I'll seek advice from my senior brothers tomorrow. Moreover, I'll be living on Tianmu Peak in the future. We'll be together every day, and there'll be plenty of opportunities to drink. When I grow up, I'll properly toast all of you senior brothers. How about that?" Hearing this, Qin Fengxiao slapped his forehead and looked as if he had suddenly realized something. He explained to Wu Zhouxiu, "Dalong, we were in a hurry yesterday and didn't make it clear. Junior brother-in is a medicine boy selected by Rejuvenation Valley. Don't look at his adult figure. He's still young. If he doesn't drink, then there's no need to force him." Zhang Xiaohua's reason was sufficient. Qin Fengxiao also defended her from the side. The people of the Dan tribe naturally couldn't force her. Thus, they let Qiu Weicheng send Zhang Xiaohua back. The others went to have fun. Zhang Xiaohua returned to the small courtyard and didn't waste any time. She threw her bundle on the bed and took out a straw cattail hassock. She sat cross-legged and took out the medicinal pills that she had obtained from the Dan tribe in the afternoon. She carefully examined them. When she opened the corks of the 4 bottles of medicinal pills, a strong medicinal fragrance assailed her nostrils. With one sniff, she knew that they were top-notch medicinal pills. Unfortunately, when this smell landed in Zhang Xiaohua's nose, She had already labeled these medicinal pills as inferior. Zhang Xiaohua had refined the blood replenishing pill before. She had only smelled it slightly before putting it down. Zhang Xiaohua had never heard of the blood coagulation pill and the small bone strengthening pill. But after smelling the medicinal fragrance, she roughly knew what medicinal herbs were used to refine them. However, they were also ordinary medicinal pills, so she put them down. Only the small bone strengthening pill, because it was a replica of the bone strengthening pill. Zhang Xiaohua took a special look at it. However, just from looking at this medicinal pill, it didn't seem to be much different from the small bone strengthening pill. They were both medicinal pills used to treat bone injuries. As for the useless Yuhuandan pill, Zhang Xiaohua didn't even have the interest to open the bottle. She still had a bottle of the real Yuhuandan pill in her purse. How could she look at this useless medicinal pill? Moreover, this medicinal pill was useless. Even if she wanted to refine it, it would take a lot of effort. Not to mention that she didn't have the prescription of the Yuhuandan pill. After checking today's harvest, Zhang Xiaohua took out the purse. The first thing she needed to do was to put all the valuable golden leaves in the bag into the space. Of course, this was Nie Qianyu's kind intention. She couldn't ignore it. Then she put the 5 bottles of medicinal pills together with the clothes and medicinal pills sent by Nie Qianyu in the bag again. Anyway, there were medicinal pills worth 50 taels of gold. Presumably, the golden leaves didn't need to show up in the future. After tidying up the golden leaves, Zhang Xiaohua took out the pill formula that he had long forgotten and left in the corner of his coin pouch. The prescription that Chu Zhigao gave to Zhang Xiaohua was very thin. It recorded a few prescriptions. The one at the very front was the prescription for the bone strengthening pill. Inside, it recorded the few main ingredients and supplementary ingredients needed for the bone strengthening pill, as well as the detailed steps to refine it. However, the name of the medicinal herbs was the name of an ancient medicinal herb. The steps to refine it were also close to the method of refining immortal pills. It must have been learned from the jade slips by the ancestors of the Dragon Mountain. Looking at the familiar refining method, Zhang Xiaohua understood that no matter what, the lineage of the Dragon Mountain would not be able to refine the real bone strengthening pill. It was no wonder that Chu Zhigao couldn't figure out the contents of the prescription and had to give it to her as a favor. In the prescription, the effects of the bone strengthening pill were described to be a little exaggerated. However, thinking about the medicinal paste that Chu Zhigao improved based on the prescription, and the fact that the fragrant religion actually refined the imitation small bone strengthening pill based on the prescription, she knew that the prescription wasn't false. If the real bone strengthening pill could be refined, it might not be any worse than the Yuhuandan pill. However, Zhang Xiaohua didn't know if she could find the medicinal herbs needed to refine the bone strengthening pill on Tianmu Peak. She could only memorize the prescription first and think about it when she found the right medicinal herbs in the future. Putting away the prescription, Zhang Xiaohua closed her eyes and began to cultivate. When the sky had turned dark and the moon had risen, Zhang Xiaohua's mind suddenly moved. She released her divine sense. Sure enough, outside the bamboo forest, she saw 2 people whispering about something. Please give me a monthly vote, a recommendation vote. -3. Chapter 547. Under the faint starlight, Zhang Xiaohua could see clearly that it was Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu. The 2 were talking about something, and occasionally Wu Zhouxiu would gesticulate as if he was objecting to something. Zhang Xiaohua was very curious. These 2 were not talking in their own territory. Why did they run to the side of the bamboo forest? If it was a man and a woman, she could understand, but these 2 men... Zhang Xiaohua felt a chill run down her spine. Not long after, the 2 seemed to have reached some agreement. Wu Zhouxiu cupped his hands and turned to leave. Qin Fengxiao looked at Wu Zhouxiu's back and did not move. Only when Wu Zhouxiu was far away did he turn and walk towards Zhang Xiaohua's small courtyard. Under the moonlight, Zhang Xiaohua could clearly see the slight smile on Qin Fengxiao's face. retracting her divine sense. Not long after, she heard the sound of Chen Fengxiao knocking on the door. Zhang Xiaohua went forward and pretended to be surprised. Smiling, she said, "Leader Chen, aren't you drinking with them? Why did you leave so early?" Chen Fengxiao waved his hand and said, "That group of brats, when they start drinking, they don't know where to start. How can they leave so early? I was just thinking about little brother's fight tomorrow, so I specially came to take a look." "Leader, thank you for your concern. It's nothing much. After watching the brothers fight today, I have more or less confidence." Chen Fengxiao's eyes lit up. "You're too kind. Little brother is now carrying the heavy responsibility of our grass division. If I don't show more concern, what will I do?" "That's right. After hearing little brother say that you have more confidence, how confident are you in tomorrow's fight?" Zhang Xiaohua didn't even need to think before he asked, "Shouldn't I be the one asking first master this question?" Chen Fengxiao was taken aback, then smiled and said, "Little brother is really smart. You immediately saw the subtleties. Haha. Although our grass division will be able to wash away our shame this time, of course, at the very least, we will be able to win 20%. But this 20% is comparable to the earnings of the previous 10 fights. This is all thanks to little brother." Zhang Xiaohua pursed his lips in amusement and said, "Don't. I can't contribute much. It's all first master's planning. I haven't even gone up to the stage, and you've already defeated Wu Dalong." "Huh." Qin Fengxiao did not hide his pride and said, "That was also because of little brother's deterrence yesterday. So, I still want to ask little brother about the situation. Don't let our grass division benefit, and let's not benefit." Zhang Xiaohua did not think much of it. He was no longer the young and inexperienced youth who had just left the Guo Manor a few years ago. It was not as if he had never shown his martial arts before. Chen Fengxiao's words were only to express his concern for him. As for whether he would be able to gain any benefits or not, it was actually not something he was concerned about. And it could also be said that Qin Fengxiao had already estimated the areas where Zhang Xiaohua would be able to gain benefits. In the fight this afternoon, Wu Zhou ruins had fallen into Qin Fengxiao's trap. He had sent out all the elites that he had confidence in. Those that could fight tomorrow, or those that could compete with Zhang Xiaohua, were not many. Under these circumstances, Qin Fengxiao did not believe that Zhang Xiaohua did not have some confidence. Zhang Xiaohua then said, "Headmaster Qin has arranged the plan so carefully. If little brother does not benefit from it, then it is little brother's own matter. I will not blame headmaster in my heart." Qin Fengxiao heard this and hurriedly waved his hand. He knew that Zhang Xiaohua had misunderstood his intentions. He said, "Actually, with little brother's martial arts, even if you fought this afternoon according to Wu Dalong's plan, you would still be able to win. I don't dare to say anything else, but I have some confidence in my ability to judge people. I also have other plans for this arrangement." Zhang Xiaohua was taken aback. He frowned and said, "I ask for headmaster's advice." Chen Fengxiao thought for a while, then said tirelessly, "When I was young, my mother told me a story. A long, long time ago, there was a fool who did not know anything. He could not even distinguish copper coins from silver. Whenever someone threw a copper coin or a piece of silver, he only knew how to pick up the copper coin and never look at the silver. Thus, many people took pleasure in this and threw copper coins to him in front of others." Zhang Xiaohua did not understand. He smiled and said, "This child is really stupid. If it were me, I would have already put the silver in my bosom." Yes, the people in the village all said so, and they all enjoyed playing this game with him. It was not until this child grew up and suddenly disappeared from this village. Then, a few years later, he achieved great things in another village and returned to the village. Only then did the villagers realize that it was not that child who was stupid, but them. Ah. Zhang Xiaohua opened his mouth and said, "Why is that?" As soon as his voice fell, Zhang Xiaohua could not help but suck in a breath of cold air and said, "So that's why." Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's quick reaction, Qin Fengxiao's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. However, he immediately concealed it and said with a smile, "That's right. If that child was more like an ordinary person and could distinguish copper coins from silver, who would throw copper coins to him day after day to play with? If he picked up the silver in one go, how could he accumulate copper coins in the future?" "Headmaster Chen, you mean?" Zhang Xiaohua somewhat understood Feng Xiao's meaning. "I think little brother already knows what I mean. Why don't I arrange for little brother to be the first to fight against the experts of the pill department? On one hand, I want to disrupt Wu Dalong's subordinates and win his elixirs. On the other hand, I don't want little brother to reveal his true strength at the beginning. I know little brother will have no problem taking down first and second King Kong, but what about after that? Not only will the battle lose a lot of suspense, but little brother will also lose a lot of benefits. Headmaster Chin, little brother does not understand what you mean. Concealing one's strength can naturally conceal one's strength and catch them off guard. However, the battle only seals the order. Others will not know who is fighting. What does this have to do with strength?" Feng Xiao said with a smile, "This is just a method of battle. Our Tianmu Peak has other methods of battle for the grass department and pill department to choose from. For example, we can name names and so on. However, our grass department has always been at a disadvantage, so we do not dare to casually agree to these methods." Zhang Xiaohua immediately understood and said to himself, "Wow, Headmaster Chin is indeed the headmaster. He thinks so far ahead. However, I have never planned to waste time on this battle. Why would I care about concealing one's strength?" Zhang Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your guidance, Headmaster. Little brother has never complained about Headmaster." Feng Xiao shook his head and said, "Little brother still does not understand what I mean." Isn't it concealing one's strength? What I mean to say is, don't you have 3 matches tomorrow? I've already asked Wu Dalong about it. Although he didn't want to say anything, I can tell from his expression that the opponents in these 3 matches aren't very skilled. What I want to say is, little brother, don't go up and knock out the opponent's teeth. You should at least let the crowd watch the show and let the opponent feel that you're a little stronger than him, or that your martial arts are on par with his, and you're just lucky. Fainting, Headmaster, this seems to be quite difficult. Feng Xiao smiled slyly and said, "Don't worry and do as I say. You will naturally know the benefits in the future." "I see." Zhang Xiaohua was deep in thought and thought to himself, "Anyway, it's fine as long as I don't lose. This is an elixir worth 50 taels of gold. I don't want to throw it away." After a moment of silence, Feng Xiao coughed and said, "Little brother, this place is a little simple and crude. Are you used to it?" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and said, "Headmaster is joking. I just slept last night. It's not that I am not used to it." Feng Xiao smiled awkwardly and said, "Actually, I came to find little brother so late because I have something to ask you." Zhang Xiaohua frowned and said, "What is so important? You could have just sent Senior Bai or Senior Chiu over. Why did you have to come personally?" "It's like this, little brother. I heard that you told Chiu Wei Cheng to tell Lu Feng and the others that you will not fight for the title of Arhot with them. I know that this is little brother's noble character and unquestionable integrity. But little brother, are you not going to participate in such battles in the future?" "Of course I will. Why don't you participate?" Zhang Xiaohua was taken aback and blurted out, thinking to himself, "Nonsense, if you can get benefits without any effort, why wouldn't you participate? Although there may not be so much in the future, but flies are also meat. If I don't even pick up the copper coins, then I am an idiot." When Feng Xiao heard this, his face lit up and he said happily, "Since little brother has replied like this, then my heart is at ease. To be honest, when you said that you are not going to fight for the title of Arhot, I thought that you were not interested in these battles. Just like those old consecrators, they're obviously greedy and want to fight, but because of their face, they're not willing to put down their status. They can only be the judges and watch us eat the meat while they drink the soup. Looks like little brother is not one to fish for fame. Zhang Xiaohua waved his hand and said, Headmaster also does not have the title of Arhot. Aren't you also participating in the battles? When he heard this, Qin Fengxiao's face changed slightly. When Zhang Xiaohua saw this, he hurriedly said, little brother's analogy is not quite right. Headmaster, don't worry. When this battle is over, I will go to the top of Tianmu Peak to find a secluded medicine field and concentrate on growing medicine. I will definitely not get involved in any of the matters of the grass division. Oh, that's right, this battle, you can arrange it. When the time comes, just call me. I will definitely not decline. When he heard this, Chen Fengxiao's face softened a little. He laughed and said, Little brother, if you can help me, I will be more than happy. Why not let you be the second master? How about it? Don't. This famous title should be left to others. That's right. I think senior brother Qiu is very suitable. Qiu Weicheng. Qin Fengxiao was stunned and said, Little brother's suggestion is not bad. If one day junior brother Qiu becomes the second master, I will let him thank you personally. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and did not say much. He was just joking. Who was the head master had nothing to do with him. After that, Qin Fengxiao kept his smile and said seriously, Little brother, I came over so late because I have an important matter to discuss with you. Come. -3. Chapter 548. Gosh, Zhang Xiaohua almost scolded him. You've been dawdling for an entire night. You've said comforting words and given me a picture. So it's just a prelude. Sigh, headmaster, do you have to be like this? Do you know that my time is very precious? Who knows how many mysteries of the heavenly Tao I've comprehended with just one rise and fall? However, the mature Zhang Xiaohua still smiled and said, Looks like it's a very important matter. Headmaster Qin, just say it. Although I've only been at Tianmu Peak for a day, your peerless leadership skills have already won me over. As long as headmaster has something that doesn't make things difficult for you, I'm willing to go through a mountain of swords or a sea of fire for you. A sea of fire is not a problem. There's the fire escape technique, but a mountain of swords doesn't seem right. We have to find the gold escape technique first. Just listen to me first. Zhang Xiaohua muttered secretly. Qin Fengxiao looked a little embarrassed. He rubbed his hands and said, Actually, it's not that difficult. It's just that it's a little hard to say. Looking at Chen Feng's bashful expression, Zhang Xiaohua felt a chill run down his spine. He quickly moved a few inches away as if nothing had happened and said seriously, This is not First Master's usual style. If you stomp your feet on Tianmu Peak, the entire peak will tremble. What's wrong with saying it out loud? Qin Fengxiao thought for a while and said, Sai, this is really, really embarrassing. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. Then she suddenly understood and said softly, Why, Headmaster Qin, did you find Wu Dalong of the pill department an eyesore? Do you want me to teach him a lesson? Boss, I can't bring myself to say this, and it's quite embarrassing. However, it's normal. Their pill division has been suppressing our grass division for such a long time, and it's all because of you. Although this is a little difficult, and I might not be able to do it well. As long as boss asks, I'll definitely do it. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's resolute action, Qin Fengxiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He quickly waved his hand and said, Stop, stop, stop. Little brother, what are you thinking? I'm only here to ask you to give me that Yuhuandin pill. Zhang Xiaohua was really stunned this time. Yuhuandin pill. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's shocked expression, Qin Fengxiao smiled bitterly and said, Little brother, I knew it. Little brother, just pretend I didn't say that. Don't, boss, what are you doing? Isn't it just a ruined pill? When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he immediately put on a righteous appearance and patted his chest. Besides, this junior brother came to Tianmu Peak and caused trouble for the first master, causing the first master to worry endlessly. There will be a lot of things to do in the future. Although the first master's request is somewhat difficult for this junior brother also needs this pill. But since the first master has spoken, how can this junior brother let his words fall? Not to mention a ruined pill. even if it's the real Yuhuandan pill. Why can't I give it to Headmaster Chin? Oh, right. How does Headmaster Chin plan to let me sell this pill? Qin Fengxiao was smiling as he listened to Zhang Xiaohua's flattery. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua changed the topic and brought up how to sell the pill. He couldn't think straight and was stunned. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua knew that things weren't good. She had flattered him too much. What if Qin Fengxiao didn't give a good price? Fortunately, Qin Fengxiao immediately realized and thought, this guy is realistic. However, he's from Rejuvenation Valley after all. How would he know the wonders of this Yuhuandan pill? Even if it's ruined, it's still a treasure. Therefore, Qin Fengxiao asked, then what do you think will make you sell this pill, little brother? This, Zhang Xiaohua muttered to herself. How could she know what Qin Fengxiao saw in this broken pill? She also didn't know what use this Yuhuandan pill had in the incense cult. She could only cup her hands and say, Headmaster, don't make things difficult for me. Just tell me what you think. As long as it's reasonable, I will definitely agree. She emphasized the word reasonable and believed that Qin Fengxiao would understand. Little brother, to be honest, our Tianmu Peaks Grass Division has been struggling these past few years. I don't have any particularly rare pills here. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's expression change slightly, Qin Fengxiao immediately explained, however, don't worry, little brother. I can still take out something worth 50 taels of gold. Zhang Xiaohua waved his hand and said generously, look at what the headmaster is saying. Even if you can't take out something of equivalent value, how can I not agree if you ask? It's good that little brother is in such a good mood. As the headmaster, how can I take advantage of little brother? It's just that Wu Dalong suddenly took out this jade rejuvenation pill in the afternoon, which caught me off guard. So, I took advantage of the fact that the banquet hasn't ended yet to inform you. I haven't prepared the specific pill yet. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua was a little puzzled and asked in confusion, if the Yuhuandan pill is so important, why would Wu Dalong take it out as a prize? Moreover, it's not a prize for the battle, but a reward for me. Headmaster, don't you think this is strange? Qin Fengxiao nodded and said, that's right. Qin Fengxiao also nodded and said, that's right. To tell you the truth, Wu Dalong also came out of the banquet just now. He also came to look for you. I asked him about it on the way here, and he also said that it was for this jade rejuvenation pill. But no matter how I asked him, since he valued it so much, why did he take it out as a prize? He just wouldn't tell me. However, judging from his remorseful look, he must have used this jade rejuvenation pill as bait to force you to take out the golden leaf as the prize. I see. Zhang Xiaohua seemed to understand. He was too smart for his own good. He thought he could win the Yuhuandan pill back in the first round, but he fell into Head's trap. He could only wait until tomorrow to win the Yuhuandan pill back. However, he obviously wasn't confident tomorrow, so he thought of coming to discuss with me tonight. Qin Fengxiao nodded and said, I think so. However, little brother, don't worry. I've already sent him away. Since the Yuhuandan pill has fallen into the hands of the Grass Division, we naturally have the right to speak. How could he have the right to speak? Zhang Xiaohua also nodded. She understood the argument between the two in the bamboo forest earlier. Qin Fengxiao continued, blood replenishing pill, blood coagulation pill, small bone congealing pill, and small bone strengthening pill. Each bottle is worth 10 taels of gold. One Yuhuandan pill is worth 40 taels of gold. Little brother, I have 15 bottles of pills that are similar to the ones mentioned above. I'll use them to exchange for your Yuhuandan pill. What do you think? Oh, of course, if little brother agrees, you can keep the Yuhuandan pill first. Tomorrow morning, I'll bring those pills over to you. Hearing this condition, Zhang Xiaohua was greatly disappointed. She frowned and said, Head's condition is so good. How can little brother not agree? But why don't you use gold to exchange for it? Cheng sure, and the others don't have it. Don't tell me you don't have it too? This, I don't have it. Qin Fengxiao didn't leave any room for negotiation. he said. Gold and silver are basically useless in the fragrance division. Only the hall leaders have the channels to obtain them. I'm just a small steward. How can I have it? If I had it, Wu Dalong would have it even more. He wouldn't have taken out this Yuhuandan pill. But what use do I have for so many broken pills? Zhang Xiaohua secretly muttered. Then her eyes lit up. She said with a smile, Head, I have a suggestion. I wonder if you'd like to hear it. Chen Fengxiao was quite interested. He asked, Little brother, quickly say it. Head, as you can see, I have some pills in my bag. Today, Wu Dalong also lost some. If you give more than 10 bottles of pills, won't it be too much? To be honest, I don't need them. Why don't you see if you have any 1,000-year-old medicinal herbs? What do you think about exchanging them? 1,000-year-old medicinal herbs. When Chen Fengxiao heard this, he almost stood up in fright. He said in his heart, It's easy for you to say that. 1,000-year-old medicinal herbs, you dare to say that. Looking at Zhang Xiaohua, Chen Fengxiao said with a bitter smile, Little brother, you're new here and don't know. Although our grass department specializes in growing medicinal herbs, but we only grow ordinary ones. Even if there are some rare herbs, we have a record of them. How can you and I get our hands on them? Not to mention 1,000-year-old medicinal herbs. Even 100-year-old ones are rare. So it's like this. Zhang Xiaohua blinked and said, Our Tianmu Peak doesn't have any, but the 19 peaks of the fragrance division are so big. Who can guarantee that there aren't hundreds and thousands of years old medicinal herbs? Maybe one of the senior brothers has such a medicinal herb? Chen Fengxiao shook his head and said, Although the fragrance division is vast, there are also many wild medicinal herbs. There are even many places that are rarely visited. Maybe there are medicinal herbs that little brother is talking about. However, our grass department brothers' martial arts are weak and their lightness skills are even worse. Even the outer disciples can't easily enter those places, let alone our brothers of the pill-expanding hall. Those places... Zhang Xiaohua rolled his eyes. He really wanted to ask where it was from, but then Chen Feng smiled and said tentatively, Little brother, if you can give me an age limit, for example, 50 to 60 years old, maybe I can look for it. Is that so? Zhang Xiaohua was happy in her heart, but still frowned and said, If it's difficult for Head, 50 to 60 years old medicinal herbs are also fine. However, do you think Wu Dalong of the pill department has 100-year-old medicinal herbs? Chen Fengxiao listened with a displeased face. Little brother is a brother of our grass department. How can you help an outsider? Of course not. Little brother was just curious and asked Wu Dalong if he had it. Since Head has taken a fancy to this pill, of course I won't give it to Wu Dalong. Please don't worry about this. Well, little brother, keep the Yuhuandan pill first. Remember, no matter who comes, don't sell it. Just tell them that you're keeping it for me. I'll go back and take a look at the medicinal herbs. I'll bring it over tomorrow. Thank you. Come to read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. -3. Chapter 549. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua's face lit up. She said, Boss, why are you being so courteous? Take your time searching. I'll keep the Yuhuandan pill for you. Chen Fengxiao cupped his hands and said, Thank you, little brother. I'll take my leave now. I'll go back and search carefully. To be honest, I have quite a lot of medicinal herbs. Although I lost a lot to the pill department, it's still very little after so many years. After saying this, Chen Fengxiao stood up and turned to leave. However, he didn't forget to remind her, Little brother, if anyone comes looking for you, don't give the Yuhuandan pill to them. Zhang Xiaohua was immediately unhappy when she heard this. She thought to herself, Is my character that bad? I just promised you that I'll get the medicinal herbs tomorrow morning. How can I give it to someone else? Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua stood up and said, Boss, please wait a moment. After saying this, she walked to the table next to her and opened up the bundle that she had packed. She took out the Yuhuandan pill that Chen Fengxiao was determined to get. She casually threw it to him and said, "If boss doesn't trust me, or if you're afraid that someone else will take it away, then you can take the pill first." Chen Fengxiao hurriedly caught the jade bottle that Zhang Xiaohua had thrown to him. He was very happy in his heart. This guy has finally been enlightened. I'll have a bright future in training him. However, he declined. "This isn't good, little brother. Even blood-related brothers settle accounts clearly. If you do this, you'll make things difficult for me." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "What kind of person is boss? If I don't trust you, then there won't be anyone on Tianmu Peak worth trusting." "Good, little brother. Well said. I'll remember your feelings." It was rare for Chen Fengxiao to be so happy that he even blurted out the name Chen. Presumably, he would wake up laughing even in his dreams tonight. Chen Fengxiao carefully tucked the jade bottle into his bosom, cupped his hands, and quickly walked out of the small courtyard. His footsteps were so light that they didn't seem to touch the ground at all. Behind him, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but shake her head. He really didn't feel that this ruined Yuhuandan pill was of any use. Otherwise, he would have taken a look at it back then. Seeing that it was getting late, Zhang Xiaohua sat down again and prepared to use the remaining time to work harder. But at this moment, a voice called out from outside the courtyard. Junior brother Rin, are you in the courtyard?" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. It was almost midnight. Who would be screaming? When she looked with her divine sense, she saw two people standing outside the courtyard. One was senior brother Baihuan, and the other was an old consecrator who made the ruling in the gambling arena during the day. Zhang Xiaohua was surprised at first, but then she muttered, "Is it because of this Yuhuandan pill again?" Therefore, she didn't dare to be negligent. As she walked out, she answered loudly, "Which senior brother is looking for me? Please come in for a chat." Hearing Zhang Xiaohua's response, Baihuan led the old consecrator into the courtyard. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked and quickly bowed. "Consecrator," Baihuan explained, "Junior brother Rin, this is the old consecrator of our pill repository hall. His surname is Feng. He's very popular on Tianmu Peak and is best at guiding the younger generation." Zhang Xiaohua bowed again and said, "Consecrator Feng, how are you? If there's anything, just send someone to call for me. How can I let you come here personally?" Consecrator Feng had heard of Zhang Xiaohua's fierce behavior last night and was afraid that she wouldn't give him face. Now that he saw that Zhang Xiaohua was respectful and courteous like a well-educated and well-behaved child, he couldn't help but feel happy. Therefore, he supported her, stroked his beard, and said, "Junior nephew Rin, although I'm considered an elder of the sect, I'm from the pill division and I'm from the grass division. We don't know each other well, so I don't dare to act rashly." After hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly invited Consecrator Feng into the room and sat down. Then she asked carefully, "May I know why Consecrator Feng is looking for me?" Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua went straight to the point, Consecrator Feng nodded secretly and glanced at Baihuan. Baihuan woke up and said, "Junior brother Rin, didn't Wu Dalong of the pill division compensate you with the Yuhuandan pill at the gambling arena earlier? Consecrator Feng is very interested in this pill and asked me to bring him here to ask you if you can transfer the pill to him." Then she glanced at Consecrator Feng and added, "He's willing to pay a high price and will definitely satisfy Junior brother Rin." As expected, Zhang Xiaohua nodded secretly. However, she was also puzzled. Was there any secret about this Yuhuandan pill that she did not know? After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua said apologetically, "Although I've only met Consecrator Feng once, since senior brother I brought him here and he's a consecrate of the hall, there shouldn't be any problem with this matter." But Consecrator Feng frowned and could not help but ask, "What?" But before Consecrator Feng arrived, Headmaster Qin took the pill away first. This Consecrator Feng was a little anxious and said, "How can it be so coincidental? I saw them drinking together, so I hurriedly called Marshal Nephew by over. Could it be that I was still a step too late?" Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, I don't dare to deceive. Consecrate a foam. Look. After speaking, she opened her bag, and the pill inside was revealed. Although Consecrate a foam was a little embarrassed, he still took a closer look. The Yuhuandan pill was indeed not there. They came here rashly, and Zhang Xiaohua definitely did not have the ability to foresee the future, so she would not have hidden it in advance. Consecrate a foam was already somewhat convinced. He then saw Zhang Xiaohua say, "If Consecrate a foam needs it urgently, you can chase after Headmaster Chen now. He also just left and may not have returned yet." Consecrator Feng's face was full of disappointment. He shook his head gently and said, "No, no, no. Sai, if I had known, I would have stopped you on the spot. All right, Marshal Nephew Rin, thank you very much. I'll take my leave." After speaking, he cupped his hands and walked out of the house without staying any longer. Bai Huan, who was sitting on the chair, also quickly stood up. She waved her hand at Zhang Xiaohua and chased after him. Nonsense, the bamboo forest outside was so gloomy. He did not dare to stay alone. Zhang Xiaohua pretended to send him off. When she reached the door, the two had already left the courtyard. Standing under the water-like moonlight, Zhang Xiaohua was deep in thought. A defective Yuhuandan pill was enough to make them fight over it. What about the real Yuhuandan pill? Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of smiles. She still had a few pills in her money pouch. Chen Fengxiao had been here, Bai Huan had been here, and Consecrated Feng had also been here. Presumably, the news that the Yuhuandan pill was no longer with her would soon spread throughout the entire Tianmu Peak. In the future, no one would come to trouble her. However, using the Yuhuandan pill to exchange for medicinal herbs reminded Zhang Xiaohua. Pills were hard currency on Tianmu Peak, but medicinal herbs were worthless. It should be very easy to exchange pills for medicinal herbs. Should she exchange all the pills she won tomorrow for medicinal herbs? It seemed that tomorrow's gambling fight was not a gambling fight, but a welcoming party for her by the pill department. Zhang Xiaohua released her divine sense and roughly scanned her surroundings. After confirming that there were no abnormalities, she closed a courtyard door and set up a restriction. She then concentrated on practicing the worry-free Heart Sutra. The next morning, Zhang Xiaohua had just finished practicing the Fist of the North Star when she saw Chen Fengxiao walking over with a smile. Behind him was still Qiu Weicheng. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua walking over from the cliff, Chen Fengxiao laughed loudly and said, "Little brother, you are indeed a diligent person. I thought you had not woken up yet. Who knew that you had already practiced martial arts once?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "The early bird gets the worm. This is what my mother told me when I was very young. I have been stupid since I was young, so I had to wake up earlier than others." Hearing this, Chen Fengxiao's expression was not happy. He said sadly, "Sai, my mother also said this when I was young. It's just that, little brother is still young and has a lot of time. You must practice your martial arts well. When you travel the Jianghu in the future, you must remember to visit your mother more often." Seeing Chen Fengxiao reveal his true feelings, Zhang Xiaohua sighed. Regardless of whether this person was good or bad, or whether his actions were right or wrong, at least when he talked about his mother, he was filial. This person had his redeeming qualities. Zhang Xiaohua said apologetically, "Leader, please don't blame me. I spoke inappropriately and made you think too much." Chen Fengxiao waved his hand and said, "No need to be so polite, little brother. Yesterday, I made it clear that you are my brother. In front of your own brother. Why do you care so much?" Then, with a wave of his hand, Qiu Weicheng, who was behind him, passed a small bag to Zhang Xiaohua. Chen Fengxiao smiled and said, "Little brother, in this bag are the medicinal herbs that I promised you yesterday. Take a look. There is one iron bone grass that is almost 70 years old. The other herbs are not as good, but they are still around 30 years old. Iron bone grass." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and thought, "Isn't this the main ingredient of the bone solidifying pill?" Zhang Xiaohua took the bag and said, "Leader, you said that you were my brother and that there was no need to be so polite. Why are you being so polite? Didn't you say that there was only one herb yesterday? Why are there more herbs today?" "Little brother, you are wrong. This Yuhuandan pill is something that I have been coveting for a long time. Not to mention these herbs. Even if there were more, I would be willing to take them out. I am taking advantage of little brother by doing this." "Oh, right." Saying this, Qin Fengshao took out a jade bottle from his chest and passed it to Zhang Xiaohua, saying, "This is the blood replenishing pill. Perhaps it will be useful in today's battle. Take it." Zhang Xiaohua declined and said, "This thing has already been compensated by Wu Dalon yesterday. I also brought some from Rejuvenation Valley. Furthermore, you have already given me so many herbs. This is not necessary." Qin Fengshao stuffed it into his hands and said with a smile, "Take it, take it. This way my heart will be at ease." Zhang Xiaohua had no choice but to accept it. However, holding the warm jade bottle, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly asked, "That's right, leader, I have a question. Look, this jade bottle is originally made of jade, and this jade seems to be about the same as the golden leaf. Why did you casually give away this jade bottle that contains the pills and become flustered when you see the golden leaf? Isn't it a bit like buying the casket and returning the pearls? Please vote for me, recommend me. Come and read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading." -3. Chapter 550. When Chen Feng heard this, he shook his head and said, "Little brother is right. I remember when I was a child outside, jade was very precious. It was no less valuable than gold. But little brother only saw one side of it and did not see the other side. Generally speaking, the rarer something is, the more precious it is. In this fragrant religion, there are countless jade stones, just like ordinary stones. Why would you care about it? Even if others see them as treasures, they're nothing but rubble in our eyes." "Countless?" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and asked, "How did Chuanxiang cult get so many jades?" "This?" Qin Fengshao pondered for a moment and said in a low voice, "Chuanxiang cult has a special shoe hall that mines jades from Jiuhua Peak. It is said that in these thousands of years there hasn't been much mining, but there is still an inexhaustible supply of jades. Tell me, in our eyes, can jades be compared to gold leaves?" "Oh, so that's how it is." Zhang Xiaohua came to a sudden realization. Presumably, there was a jade mine beneath 9 Radiance Peak. That was why it was able to provide an endless supply of jade for the incense cult to use. No matter how precious a jade was, it wouldn't be worth much and could only be used as a bottle. "Oh, right, Headmaster Chen, yesterday Feng, Zhang Xiaohua told Qin Fengshao about Feng's visit last night." Qin Fengshao nodded. "Yes, Bai Huan already reported this to me last night." It's already the middle of the night, Qin Fengshao chuckled. "When he heard that I was the one who took it, he was afraid that he would violate my taboo by bringing Feng here. Do you think he would be so diligent?" Qiu Weicheng also laughed. "After Headmaster Chen knew about this, he immediately told me to spread the news of him taking the Yuhuandan pill. Junior brother Rin, don't worry, no one will disturb you in the future." Zhang Xiaohua thanked him. "Headmaster is very considerate." Qin Fengshao looked at the rising sun and said, "Little brother, it's time for breakfast. Let's go. Don't let anyone send you food. Eat with me." "Deliver food?" Zhang Xiaohua touched her nose and smiled bitterly. She had lived here for 2 days and had forgotten to eat. She had fasted for a long time and didn't want to eat. Bai Huan thought that Qin Fengshao would arrange it for her, and Qin Fengshao thought that Bai Huan would arrange it for her, so no one sent her food. Zhang Xiaohua followed Qin Fengshao and Qiu Weicheng to the place where they were eating. It was an exquisite, small hall. On a huge table, the 6 great arhats and the other managers of the cottage were already seated, quietly waiting for Head Master Qin to come over. When they saw Zhang Xiaohua behind Qin Fengshao, their eyes lit up and they stood up. Walking into the small hall, Qin Fengshao and Qiu Weicheng sat down. Zhang Xiaohua bowed to everyone and also found a place to sit. Just as he sat down, Lu Quan, who was beside him, came over and said in a low voice, "Little brother, I was just about to look for you. But before the battle, if there was nothing urgent, I could not disturb you, so—" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and asked, "Senior Lu, what's the matter?" Lu Quan raised his head and looked around. He lowered his voice and said, "Junior brother-in, can you give me a small bone-solidifying elixir?" "Oh yes, I will not take it for free. I will give you herbs to exchange for it." Then he smiled apologetically. "I know this is not appropriate, but this small bone-solidifying elixir is useful to me. Since you were able to let the head master exchange herbs for elixirs yesterday, can you also give me some face?" Zhang Xiaohua was happy, but his face was extremely awkward. He said, "Senior Lu, you are putting me in a difficult position. This elixir can only be made by the offerings of the Dan department, and all of them have to be turned in. I only have one bottle of small bone-solidifying elixir in my hand now. If I use it up, I will have no more. Although the herbs are good, they are not elixirs after all. Difficult, haha, difficult." Lu Quan frowned. "Little brother, your martial arts are high. This small bone-solidifying elixir may not be of use to you. Moreover, if you can exchange it with the headmaster, why can't you exchange it with me? This is the first time senior brother has spoken. Won't you carefully and seriously consider it?" Zhang Xiaohua was still secretly happy. He only asked, "Then senior brother can't exchange it with other elixirs?" "Elixirs? If I have elixirs, why would I exchange it with you? The elixirs of our grass department have already been lost to the Dan department, and the elixirs of the Dan department are all in the hands of the 10 great guardian deities. Where do you want me to get elixirs?" Zhang Xiaohua understood, and also said in a low voice, "All right, since this is the first time senior brother Lu has spoken, I can't let him lose face. However, senior brother, you must listen carefully. You must not tell anyone about this. Otherwise," Lu Quan interrupted him in a low voice, "How can I not know about this? I won't tell anyone, don't worry." After saying that, he carefully looked to the side. The others who were accompanying Chen Fengxiao and chatting had already pricked up their ears. Although they spoke softly, Zhang Xiaohua didn't believe that they didn't hear it. Moreover, looking at Lu Quan's appearance, although he said that he wouldn't, who knew if he would turn around and tell anyone? Sure enough, after Zhang Xiaohua and the rest had finished their breakfast, just as they walked out of the small hall, Si Huinan pulled Zhang Xiaohua to one side sneakily. He also wanted to exchange herbs for elixirs, but what he wanted was the blood coagulation pill. Zhang Xiaohua sighed helplessly under Si Huinan's persuasion. She had no choice but to agree to his request. She used a 40-year-old blackwood fruit to exchange for a blood coagulation pill. This blackwood fruit was the other main ingredient in refining the bone coagulation pill. Naturally, Zhang Xiaohua repeatedly reminded Si Huinan to not tell anyone about her exchange of elixirs. As for whether Si Huinan would say it or not, that would depend on his character, or rather, it would depend on Zhang Xiaohua's character. Zhang Xiaohua had already been to the gambling arena yesterday, so she didn't need anyone to lead the way. When she took her bag and arrived at the arena, there were already many disciples sitting there. It was actually 30% more than yesterday. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. She walked to Qiu Weicheng's side and asked him, after hearing about the gambling match between the grass and pill divisions yesterday, as well as the fact that he, a popular disciple, would definitely be on stage today, many disciples who usually didn't pay much attention to the gambling match became interested and came here early in the morning to fight for a seat. Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. This person's curiosity was really strong. Not long later, Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu accompanied the 5 consecrators into the arena. Old consecrator, Lei, placed the sealed box on the table. The 2 of them took out their keys and unlocked the box before returning to their respective sides. Old consecrator Lei looked at the crowd and smiled. Yesterday, Chen Fengxiao from the grass division gave us a very big surprise. I just don't know if Wu Zhouxiu from the pill division can reverse yesterday's decline. Disciples of the Grass Division and Pill Division, please place your bets. However, when old consecrator Lay said this bet, he lacked confidence. Everyone knew that yesterday, in order to seize the initiative and obtain the real object of 50 taels of gold, not only did the Dan Division take out the Jade Rejuvenation Pill, they even sent out the 4 absolute main forces, the Great Vajra, the Second Vajra, the Third Vajra, and the Fourth Vajra. Although they obtained 2 victories, their opponents were only the 5th Arhat and the 6th Arhat. Today, the Dan Division only had the 8th Arhat and the 10th Arhat, but the Grass Division still had the 2nd Arhat, the 3rd Arhat, and Zhang Xiaohua, this mysterious contestant whose martial arts level was unknown. The 3rd King Kong and 6th King Kong's martial arts were basically on par. They were slightly weaker than 5th King Kong. These 2 King Kong had a good chance of winning against the 5th King Kong. Since Zhang Xiaohua was able to beat 10th King Kong until his teeth fell out, his martial arts should be about the same as the 3rd King Kong. Therefore, the Pill Division's future was worrying. However, Chen Fengxiao's arrangement had some flaws. This morning, he actually let Zhang Xiaohua fight 3 times. This was something that had never happened since the beginning of the gambling fights on Tianmu Peak. It should be the only chance for the Pill Division to even things out. When the disciples below the arena heard the bets, they were also in a difficult position. The first round was most likely the mysterious Grass Division disciple. If he met 5th King Kong and 6th King Kong, there was still a chance of winning. If he met 10th King Kong and 8th King Kong, not long after, the bets were placed. Old consecrator Lay smiled and took out a brocade bag. He shouted, "The 6th round, the Grass Division will fight Ren Xiaoyao." Okay, the morale of the Grass Division disciples was greatly boosted. They all raised their arms and cheered. Zhang Xiaohua stood up and waved to the disciples behind him. He walked slowly into the arena. He didn't show off or say anything. He just stood there quietly. Old consecrator Lay was also stunned. He thought to himself, this brat can keep his composure. Then he took out another brocade bag. When he opened the note inside, he couldn't help but reveal a strange smile. Then he held back his laughter and shouted, "The 6th round, the Pill Division will fight Cheng Shi." Ah, not only was the Pill Division surprised, but the Grass Division also cried out. Why was Zhang Xiaohua famous? Wasn't it because he taught Cheng Shi a lesson? He knocked out Cheng Shi's teeth and even accepted the Pill Division representative's compensation worth 50 taels of gold. Now that the 2 of them met, was it because they were enemies? Or was it because they were once bitten by a snake, twice shy? Everyone was excited. There were also many people who secretly complained. They had bet on the Pill Division to win. When he heard his name being called, Cheng Shi stood up. Yesterday, when he saw that Zhang Xiaohua did not appear in any of the matches and that he had to appear in 3 matches, and he was the first match today, Cheng Shi knew that he would most likely meet Zhang Xiaohua. Thus, he was not surprised. He stood up confidently, picked up a Qi Mei staff from the ground, and entered the arena. Although swords and sabers weren't prohibited in Tianmu Peak's gambling matches, this was still a gambling match between Pill Division disciples. It wasn't good to be injured. Therefore, everyone wisely didn't bring any weapons. Cheng Shi's weapon was the Qi Mei cudgel. It was suitable for him to use it now. Cheng Shi held the Qi Mei cudgel and made a stance. He called out, "Junior brother Ren, we meet again." "Yes, I'm very honored to be able to experience senior brother Cheng's skills again. I've already experienced your punches and kicks. Today, I would like to ask junior brother Ren for advice on weapons. I hope junior brother will not be stingy." Cheng Shi squinted his eyes and said. Zhang Xiaohua shook his head. "Then I'll have to disappoint senior brother Cheng. I don't know anything about weapons. It's better to fight barehanded." When the audience heard this, there was an uproar. "Please vote for me. -3. Chapter 551. Everyone had seen carelessness before, but none of the disciples of the Grass Division and Pill Division had ever seen such carelessness before. In the previous battles, there were times when the great guardian deity of the Pill Division met the 6 Arhats of the Grass Division, and there were times when he would be careless. However, he had never used his bare hands to fight against a weapon like this. Moreover, this was a battle with a stake of 50 taels of gold. Even the great guardian deity Zhou Shuming wouldn't dare to be so careless. When Cheng Shi heard this, a brilliant expression appeared on his face. Even though he had lost a few teeth after being beaten up by Zhang Xiaohua 2 nights ago, he was still one of the 10 great guardian deities. Cough, cough. Even though he was at the bottom, he still had some unique skills, especially this staff technique. He had received guidance from an inner disciple in his early years, and had also devoted himself to practicing it for a period of time. Even Zhou Shuming of the pill department would praise it endlessly when he saw it. It was one of Cheng Shi's trump cards. When the name of the last battle was announced, his first reaction was that he would meet Zhang Xiaohua the next day. His second reaction was to seek revenge, and his third reaction was naturally to use the Qi Mei staff. That day, Cheng Shi had suffered a loss at the hands of Zhang Xiaohua. He had always felt that Zhang Xiaohua's hands and feet were only average. It was because he didn't take him seriously that Zhang Xiaohua's sneak attack succeeded. Of course, Cheng Shi also knew that his hands and feet were only average. Only with a staff would he have the confidence to get back the hatred from Zhang Xiaohua. Yes, and that 50 taels of gold. When he heard Zhang Xiaohua say that he wasn't good at using weapons, Cheng Shi felt as if he was dreaming. It was as if there were 50 taels of gold hanging above his head. He laughed and said, "Junior brother-in, are you sure you don't want to use a weapon?" Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, "Could it be that there is a rule in our Tianmu Peak that if you use a weapon, I must use a weapon? If that's the case, then I can only reluctantly find a weapon." Cheng Shi hurriedly waved his hands. "No, our Tianmu Peak's duels are quite humane. If you don't want to use it, others won't force you. However, junior brother-in doesn't use a weapon, and I, as a senior brother, use a weapon instead. Wouldn't others say that I'm bullying him? Oh no, it should be bullying him? It's still not right." Seeing Cheng Shi so conflicted, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Then does senior apprentice brother Cheng not want to use weapons?" Cheng Shi tightened his grip on the Qi Mei staff and said nervously, "I did have such an idea, but since I'm going to fight with a strong opponent like junior brother-in, I naturally have to use my most powerful move. Only then will I be worthy of you, junior brother-in. Don't you think so? If I'm also empty-handed, I'll tell you later that I'm best at staff techniques. Even if you win, isn't it a little unfair?" These words were said very smoothly. Perhaps he had already thought of the wording last night. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and cupped her hands. "Then I thank senior apprentice, brother Cheng, for valuing me. Can we start now? Look, old consecrated, Lei has been impatient for a long time. Of course, you took a weapon and still dawdled to explain to the other party that you're empty-handed. It seemed like you had no choice. How could the others not frown when they saw this?" Cheng Shi smiled awkwardly and twirled his staff in the air. He shouted, "Since that's the case, junior brother-in, pay attention. I'm going to make my move." After he finished speaking, he raised his leg and pounced over, striking his staff at Cheng Shi's head. "Sigh, senior apprentice brother Cheng. You've already taken advantage of the weapon, but you still won't let me make a few moves? You actually want to make the first move. Looking at your bearing, it's not something an expert should have." Zhang Xiaohua secretly criticized in her heart. Although she thought this, Zhang Xiaohua didn't want to test the results of her cultivation of the big Dipper Divine fist with the top of her head when she saw the Qi Mei staff smashing down with a whoosh. Therefore, she still released her divine sense. When the Qi Mei staff was about to finish its move, she dodged to the side and then grabbed with her hand, directly grabbing the head of the staff. When Cheng Shi saw this, he was secretly delighted. His hand shook and the staff flew out, striking towards Zhang Xiaohua's hand. Although the staff looked good, in the divine sense, it was flashy but not practical. Zhang Xiaohua slightly tilted her hand, grabbing the place where the Qi Mei staff was about to hit. But just as she was about to grab it, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly remembered what Qin Fengshao said last night. She unconsciously smiled and said, loosening the reins only to grasp them better. Oh, or in other words, casting a long line to catch a big fish. Who doesn't know how to do that? Therefore, she clenched her hand and used her fist to hit the Qi Mei staff. She immediately retracted her hand with a painful expression on her face, as if she was really hit by the Qi Mei staff. She even sucked in a breath of cold air. That resemblance. Even Qin Fengshao, who was watching the battle from the side, felt his heart tighten. He secretly said, "Oh no, this guy is too arrogant. He's going to suffer." Since even Qin Fengshao was fooled, there was no need to say anything more about Chengshi. His heart was filled with joy. That staff of his danced with a whistling sound, sweeping horizontally towards Zhang Xiaohua's waist. Zhang Xiaohua retracted her hand into her sleeve. Like a sparrow hawk, she somersaulted and soared into the air. Once again, she evaded the attack. She stretched out her left fist and punched towards Chengshi's face. Chengshi's move did not stop. He quickly withdrew the Qi Mei staff and held it horizontally in front of his eyes. Zhang Xiaohua's left fist landed on the Qi Mei staff. If it was a normal day, Zhang Xiaohua's punch would have a force of 10,000 jin. Not to mention a wooden staff, even an iron staff would be smashed. Wouldn't Chengshi vomit blood and die? Since Zhang Xiaohua wanted to stab a pig's nose with scallions, of course she couldn't use her strength. She only knocked on the staff and immediately used the force to somersault backwards. After staggering a few steps, she steadied herself. Alarmed, she said, "Senior martial brother Cheng, how can your martial arts be this high? Little brother was quite lucky the day before yesterday." Chengshi's face lit up, as if 50 taels of gold were shining. He shouted, "Ha ha, now you know how powerful I am. Why haven't you admitted defeat yet?" Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand. "Don't. If I admit defeat now, I won't be able to see the elegant demeanor of your Dan Department's Jin Gang. It's better to give little brother a chance. Let me admire you a bit more." This brat was still teasing others at this time. However, the ecstatic Chengshi might not be able to hear the word admire in his words. Just look at how he swung the staff in a sweeping away 1,000 army posture. He did not give Zhang Xiaohua a chance to catch her breath. Zhang Xiaohua was also helpless. She could only restrain her temper and fight with him. She had to praise Zhang Xiaohua. This brat's martial arts had reached an extremely high level. He was no longer limited to using the fixed fist of the North Star, but just according to Chengshi's moves, she casually came up with a stance to deal with him. Every move was derived from the fist of the North Star. Only some angles and the height of some arms were not the same. He consciously knew that these moves were derived from the 108 moves, or it could be said that there were a total of 216 moves. But in the eyes of others, different moves were constantly appearing. Moreover, Zhang Xiaohua's ethereal steps was slightly activated. Her whereabouts were erratic. Her fists and palms were also untraceable. Chengshi's Qi Mei cudgel danced like a dragon swinging its tail as it chased after Zhang Xiaohua, but it could not even touch the corner of Zhang Xiaohua's clothes. Some people whose martial arts were slightly higher, such as the 5 consecrators, Qin Fengshao and Wu Zhouxiu, seemed to have noticed something strange. Although they could not truly estimate Zhang Xiaohua's martial arts, but from Zhang Xiaohua's ordinary moves that could turn something rotten into something magical, they could already feel that Chengshi was definitely not her opponent. As for whether Zhang Xiaohua could win against the 8 Vajra and the others, they also did not know in their hearts. As the saying goes, those who are closely involved cannot see clearly. Now, it could not be more appropriate to describe Chengshi. Seeing Chengshi's cudgel strike after strike, he always felt that he could knock down or force Zhang Xiaohua out of the circle. But Zhang Xiaohua was always like Xiaohua in the wind. No matter how strong or weak the wind was, he would always sway in the same posture, big or small, but he did not stick to the ground. Even if the wind was blowing to the point that it was about to break, but when the wind was weak, he would immediately stand up straight. Thus, Changshi became more and more attentive and used more and more strength. He had long put aside his gradually disordered inner breath and gradually long breaths. Under his single-minded focus, he took the initiative to attack Zhang Xiaohua's unbearable strength. As he fought and retreated at the same time, the two people's battle group gradually moved to the side, gradually moving towards the Grass Division disciples. And the sound of the Qi Mei cudgel swinging out made the Grass Division disciples tremble in fear even from afar. And when Qiu Wei Cheng, who was standing in front of the disciples, saw Zhang Xiaohua coming back, the corners of his mouth curled up. He pulled Qin Fengxiao's sleeve and pointed at his feet. Qin Fengxiao immediately understood. He turned around to look at the disciples and waved his hand. The dozens of disciples in the front row also had a face of joy. They bent their waists and carefully retreated to the back. When the back row rose into the air, Qin Fengxiao and Qiu Wei Cheng brought the 6 great luohan and moved back a lot, creating a large space in front of them. When the Pill Division disciples opposite them saw this, they all stuck out their middle fingers and gestured towards the Grass Division opposite them. Then they loudly cheered, hoping that Changshi could hear them. Unfortunately, Changshi had long taken the Pill Division disciples' reminders as encouragement. When he swung his cudgel at Zhang Xiaohua, he didn't even let them look towards the Pill Division. He swung his hair very confidently and didn't even notice the problem of walking out of the arena. Nonsense! The Grass Division disciples were still some distance away. Moreover, wasn't Zhang Xiaohua in front of him? Even if he walked out of the arena, Zhang Xiaohua would be the one to do it first. What was he afraid of? Actually, even Qin Fengxiao and the rest were sweating. Zhang Xiaohua kept retreating, obviously wanting to drag Qingshi out of the arena. But there were no eyes behind him. How could he see the sidelines? If he accidentally crossed the line first, wouldn't that be self-defeating? At this time, even old consecrated Lei and the rest stood up and walked to the side of the table together, carefully anticipating the end of this battle. Zhang Xiaohua released her divine sense and had long seen the sidelines carefully. When she was almost there, she reached out and grabbed the Qimei cudgel. Changshi was secretly delighted and swung his cudgel again. Zhang Xiaohua raised her hand and hit it. She pretended to be in pain, and her other hand immediately reached out and grabbed the Qimei cudgel with both hands. With a little force, Changshi couldn't help but rush forward. Zhang Xiaohua let go, and her hand went through the roots. Without looking back, she kicked that guy's butt. She didn't use much strength, but it was enough to make Changshi take a few more steps forward. Vote for me. Come and read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. -3. Chapter 552. Changshi stood still and revealed a smile of success. He had used quite a bit of strength in that strike, just now, and had hit the back of Zhang Xiaohua's hand. Looking at his expression just now, he must have been seriously injured. Both of his hands were injured. Let's see how he's going to deal with it. Thinking of this, he turned around and brandished his staff to attack again. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua just stood there motionlessly with her hands tucked behind her back. Changshi was surprised. The staff was already in the air. Could it be that she wasn't afraid? At this moment, old consecrator Lei shouted, "Stop! Changshi of the Pill Division has already left the sidelines. Ren Xiaoyao of the Grass Division wins." What? Changshi was immediately dumbfounded. That was 50 taels of gold. He should have paid Zhang Xiaohua 50 taels of gold earlier. But Wu Zhouxiu had taken out a few bottles of pills and a Yuandan pill for him in order to cast a long line to catch a big fish. Originally, Wu Zhouxiu didn't plan to let him participate in this competition. But Wu Zhouxiu's calculations were not as good as God's plans. In the first round, he wasn't chosen. Thus, he wasn't sure which round he could truly catch Zhang Xiaohua in. Furthermore, the 10 great guardian deities unanimously objected to him competing with the people, so he gave up on participating. Of course, Cheng Shi's basic requirement for participating in the battle was that the pills worth 50 taels of gold must be taken out from his own pocket. The pill division wouldn't bear half a pill, thinking that he had to take out a pill worth 50 taels of gold, and also didn't know why he lost the battle. This was clearly still far from the sidelines. Thus, Cheng Shi couldn't help but be distracted. The Chime cudgel in his hand didn't stop because of old consecrated lay shout, and directly smashed towards Zhang Xiaohua's face. Zhang Xiaohua stood with her hands crossed and looked at him quietly. Seeing that he didn't stop and that the strength of the cudgel was still sufficient, she couldn't help but frown slightly. At this moment, if she kicked it away or grabbed it with her hands, it would be effortless. But if she did so, her previous act would be wasted. Thus, Zhang Xiaohua exerted force on her feet and retreated a few steps. She accidentally tripped over her right foot and fell to the ground. Cheng Shi's Chime cudgel also smashed onto the ground, injuring a patch of flowers and grass. Cheng Shi pitifully looked at Wu Zhouxiu, who had a look of disappointment on his face, as well as the many Pill Division disciples who had looks of pity on their faces. He felt as if he had been wronged. Just as he was about to ask what was going on, he saw Wu Zhouxiu point at his feet, indicating for him to look carefully. Thus, Cheng Shi shut his mouth and looked left and right carefully. It didn't matter if he looked closely, but his lungs were about to explode from anger. Not far in front of him was a thin line. Wasn't that the sidelines of the battle arena? And the Grass Division disciples, who were supposed to be sitting beside the thin line, were now sitting far behind him. Their faces were solemn and extremely upright, but their eyes couldn't help but reveal a mocking smile. "This you?" Cheng Shi looked at his feet and pointed at Zhang Xiaohua. He really didn't know what to say. Zhang Xiaohua clasped his hands and said, "Senior Brother Cheng's martial arts are really powerful. This Chi Mei staff technique is abnormally wondrous. I really am not a match for it, so I had to resort to trickery. I hope Senior Brother Cheng can understand. Right, what is the name of this staff technique? I have never seen it before. Furthermore, Senior Brother Cheng's strength is boundless. When you use this staff technique, it is as if the Vajra of the 9 heavens has descended to the mortal world. It makes me feel as if I can't resist it." Zhang Xiaohua spoke as he walked. Cheng Shi was elated. "See, it's not that my martial arts are not good enough. People make mistakes, horses stumble too. It's just that this fellow's evil plan succeeded this time. I'll deal with him next time." Cheng Shi's face was that of a senior brother. "Junior Brother Rin, a battle depends on real ability. You can survive for a while with petty tricks, but you can't survive for a lifetime. If you want to establish yourself on Tianmu Peak, you can't always be like this. You can't always be like this." Zhang Xiaohua bowed. "I understand." Cheng Shi took the opportunity to ask in a low voice, "Then is the wager for the battle?" Zhang Xiaohua said seriously, "Senior Brother Cheng, weren't you just lecturing me not to be sneaky? Since that's the case, we can't break the rules of the battle. As for the wager, I'll keep it for you. When you challenge me next time, I'll give it back to you. How about that? Won't Senior Brother Cheng have a clear conscience if you use your own ability to win it back?" When Cheng Shi heard that, he wished he could slap his own mouth. But thinking that he would be able to win it back next time, he could accept it in his heart. He pointed at Zhang Xiaohua and said, "You said it yourself. In a few days, I'll name you and challenge you. You must accept the challenge." Zhang Xiaohua's heart was already blooming with joy, but he still panicked and said, "All right, Senior Brother Cheng, don't worry. I'll definitely use my true ability, but you must show mercy." Cheng Shi snorted and waved his hand. He walked down, as if the winner of this battle was him. Zhang Xiaohua smiled as he watched Cheng Shi leave the arena. He walked towards the Grass Division disciples. At this time, Chen Fengxiao and Qiu Weicheng had already returned to their original seats. They heard the conversation clearly. Chen Fengxiao and Qiu Weicheng both smiled and secretly gave Zhang Xiaohua a thumbs up. They thought, "This guy is really AI. I don't know if he's smart or cunning. He just won this battle and won the wager for this battle. Now he's eyeing the wager for the next battle. Not to mention that the two of them were resting. Old Consecrator lay open the box again. For the 7th battle, the Grass Division had drawn another good lot. It was the 2nd Arhot heir Dumu against the 6th Guardian Deity Jingsu. According to the records, the martial arts of the Grass Division's Arhats were generally lower than that of the Dan Division's Arhats. But the Arhats who were ranked at the top were able to take on the Arhats ranked at the bottom. This heir Dumu against Zhang Su was more likely to win than lose. When they were drinking last night, Pill Division's Wu Dalong had asked Grass Division's head Master Chen several times about the order of today's battle formation. However, Qin Fengxiao had gritted his teeth and refused to say anything. When Wu Zhouxiu heard about the two people who would be fighting, he almost felt indignant that the heavens were unfair. If you say that they were unlucky, then they were unlucky, but they shouldn't be so unlucky. Moreover, the stakes were unprecedentedly high. Vomit blood, vomit blood. Wu Zhouxiu only had this premonition. The gambling fight between heir Damu and Jiangsu was the same as the previous few fights. It was extremely boring. Both of them were familiar with each other. Their martial arts, moves, the habits of their moves, and the degree of their internal energy were explained clearly. It was just that in order to fight over this medicinal pill that was worth 50 taels of gold, both of them took out their trump card. After fighting for nearly the time it took for 3 incense sticks to burn, the winner was finally decided. Indeed, as everyone expected, heir Damu obtained the final victory. At this point, not only was heir Damu overjoyed because he obtained the wager of 50 taels of gold, even Chen Fengxiao, Qiu Weicheng, and the other Grass Division disciples were overjoyed, because after the 7th battle, the Grass Division had already obtained 5 victories, while the Dan Division only had 2. The Grass Division definitely didn't need to take out a large portion of their already meager stock of pills to lose to the Dan Division. In 3 battles, if they could win 1 battle, they could obtain 20% of the 500 taels of gold. If they could win all of the battles, wouldn't that be 60%? That was a pill worth 300 taels of gold. Thinking about this, Qin Fengxiao had the urge to pinch his own thigh. On the other hand, Wu Zhouxiu's mouth was full of bitterness. The Dan Division still had 5, 7, and 8 warriors who hadn't fought yet. The Grass Division had 3 Arhats and Zhang Xiaohua who hadn't fought yet. Seeing how Zhang Xiaohua had defeated Chengshi, the 7 and 8 warriors were most likely not her opponent. In other words, the 5 Arhats could only win 1 battle. The remaining 2 battles would be lost if there were no accidents. Calculating, the Grass Division would probably lose 200 taels of gold worth of pills. Bitter. It was even more bitter than Coptis gold thread. The 8th battle officially began with old Consecrator Lei's loud voice. However, Wu Zhouxiu's attention was no longer on the battle, because in this battle he had arranged for the 8-warrior Yu Yi to fight. He was most likely not a match for Zhang Xiaohua. But when he heard the name of the Grass Division's 3rd Arhat, Qian Zibi, hope rose from the bottom of his heart. Of course, Yu Yi wasn't a match for Qian Zibi. This was for sure. Yu Yi's martial arts were a level lower than Qian Zibi's. Even in his previous battle records, he had been completely defeated. But the remaining 2 battles were different. Firstly, Zhang Xiaohua had to fight 2 battles in a row. Her physical strength might not be enough. Secondly, Wu Zhouxiu was clear in his heart that he had sent out the 5th warrior, Yi Qingliao, for the 9th battle. He should be able to take down Zhang Xiaohua for sure. And after Zhang Xiaohua had fought with Yi Qingliao, she directly entered the 10th battle. Although it was the 7-warrior Qi Yuntian, Zhang Xiaohua was already exhausted. She might not necessarily lose. If it was calculated like this, the Dan Division would only lose 1 battle. The 20% stake was 100 taels of gold, and it was also acceptable. He could just treat it as if he had worked hard for the past few years for nothing and returned all the pills he had won from the Grass Division. As expected, the 8th battle ended very quickly. If it was before, Qian Zibi might have allowed you to make 2 moves. The 2 of them could be friends for a while and let the surrounding disciples enjoy themselves. But today it involved 50 taels of gold. Qian Zibi was afraid that he would fail miserably. After just 10 rounds, he showed a flaw. He grabbed Yi's acupoint and threw him to the ground. Seeing this, Qin Fengshao grabbed his sleeve and said softly, "Little brother, our grass division has already won a match. We've obtained 100 taels of gold. It's already made up for all the pills we've lost to the pill division over the past few years. You don't have to feel burdened. You've already won a match. So if you lose another match, we'll call it even. If you lose 2 more matches, just give all the pills you've lost to the pill division. Of course, our grass division can also take out these pills on your behalf. Little brother, you don't have to worry." Afterwards, Qin Fengshao looked at Wu Zhoushu opposite him. He wanted to say something, but hesitated. He said softly, "Also, if we win too much, the Dan division's Wu Dalong." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she smiled and said, "Boss arranged my last 2 battles together. I already understand what's going on. Don't worry. -3. Chapter 553. In fact, Zhang Xiaohua had already thought it through. If Chen Fengshao wanted her to win 3 rounds, then today's battle order would definitely be the 1st, 3rd, and 5th round. In the middle of the 2 rounds, she would be able to rest a bit, adjust her jinqi, and recover her strength. But Chen Fengshao arranged for her to fight the 4th and 5th round together, which meant that he didn't plan on letting her win the last round. As for why Qin Fengshao had such a plan, Zhang Xiaohua somewhat understood, but also somewhat didn't. However, right now, she was already standing in the arena, so she didn't have much time to think about this problem. In front of Zhang Xiaohua stood the pill division's 5th guardian deity, Yi Qingliao. The term guardian deity gave people the impression that it was a person with big shoulders and a round waist, with an appearance of infinite strength. However, Zhang Xiaohua had seen all of the 10 guardian deities, and only a few people could bear this title. For example, Cheng Shi, who was completely blasphemous to be called a guardian deity. Yi Chengliao was the one who was most worthy of this title among the 10 guardian deities. Standing in front of Zhang Xiaohua, he was almost a head taller than Zhang Xiaohua, and the muscles on his body bulged one by one. Just casually walking around the arena would make the ground tremble a bit. Seeing him, Zhang Xiaohua almost had the feeling of seeing a Misty School stone cow. When old consecrator Lei gave the order, Zhang Xiaohua bowed. "Grass Division's Ren Xiaoyao, please advise me, senior brother Yi." Seeing this, Yi Qingliao took 2 steps back for no reason. He looked at Ren Baqian suspiciously. Seeing that there was nothing unusual, he cupped his hands and said in a low and muffled voice, "Well said, junior brother Ren, let's begin." Zhang Xiaohua frowned and said, "Senior brother Yi, why did you retreat just now? This little brother hasn't attacked yet." "Hee, Dalong said that you're full of tricks, so I have to guard against you. In the previous round, I didn't see you give any gifts. This time, you suddenly did this to me. So of course I have to guard against you." "OMG," Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself, "my character isn't that bad, is it?" Then he explained, "Senior Martial Brother Yi is right. However, a few days ago, Senior Martial Brother Cheng provoked me, and I didn't want to see him. This is our first time fighting, so of course I have to be polite before resorting to force." Yi Qingliao waved his hand and said, "Don't talk about etiquette and weapons, hurry up and fight. You just have to hand over the 50 taels of gold leaf to me." After saying that, he shouted, "Junior brother Rin, since you're not using a weapon, then this Yi will also fight you empty-handed. Be careful." After saying that, he waved his long arm, and that bull-sized fist smashed towards Zhang Xiaohua's chest. Before the fist reached her body, the wind of the fist arrived first. Looking at the power of the fist, it was no less than Cheng Shi's Qi Mei cudgel. Zhang Xiaohua was the least afraid of fighting empty-handed, especially when it came to external martial arts. Therefore, she also took a step forward. Taking advantage of the fact that Yi Qingliao's arm had not straightened and his whole body strength had not reached 100%, she immediately clenched her right hand into a fist. With a "whoo" sound, she stepped forward and only used 40% of her strength. Seeing this, Yi Qingliao was overjoyed. He practiced external martial arts, and when he fought with other grass sect opponents, there were very few people who would fight him head-on. Now that Zhang Xiaohua came up and fought with him, how could he be happy? However, looking at Zhang Xiaohua's frail body, Yi Qingliao could only use 80% of his strength, so he quickly withdrew 20%. With a pung sound, the two people's fists collided. Yi Qingliao only felt his arm go slightly numb, and a huge force hit him. He couldn't help but ting back a few steps before he could steady himself. On the opposite side, Zhang Xiaohua was even worse. She retreated more than 10 steps before she managed to not fall. The two people steadied themselves and looked at each other, not easily taking a step forward. After a while, Zhang Xiaohua quickly ran in front of Yi Qingliao, jumped up, raised her left leg, and kicked towards Yi Qingliao's armpit. Although Yi Qingliao was surprised by the huge force just now, seeing Zhang Xiaohua's sorry state, he was slightly relieved. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's kick coming over, he raised his arm and used it to block. Zhang Xiaohua's left leg kicked Yi Qingliao's arm, but she didn't use too much strength. Instead, she put her leg on Yi Qingliao's arm, twisted her waist, and her right leg immediately kicked over like lightning. Yi Qingliao didn't dare to be negligent. He raised his left hand and grabbed Zhang Xiaohua's right ankle. Zhang Xiaohua wouldn't let him have his way. Her right leg deftly changed direction in the air and kicked from another angle. Yi Qingliao also had a card up his sleeve. He pushed his left arm and blocked with his left fist, so the two people started fighting. Yi Qingliao was ranked 5th in the top 10 King Kong. His kung fu wasn't weak. In addition, Zhang Xiaohua deliberately showed weakness, so the two people's punches and kicks were very exciting. However, no matter how big of an advantage Yi Qingliao had, even if he sent Zhang Xiaohua flying, knowing that he could chase after Zhang Xiaohua and defeat her, Yi Qingliao still guarded the surrounding few feet and didn't move forward. After a few times, Zhang Xiaohua understood in her heart that she had lured Yi Qingliao into a trap. This guy must have received Wu Dalong's orders. No matter how much she pretended, he wouldn't chase after her and let her kick him out of the line. Since it was like this, Zhang Xiaohua was a little worried. If it was to say that defeating this Yi Qingliao wasn't a difficult thing, but if she could defeat him very accidentally and make him unable to see through her true martial arts, then it would be a very troublesome thing. However, if she wanted to lose to Yi Qingliao and give away the 50 taels of gold pill, then it would be better to directly defeat Yi Qingliao. The two people exchanged punches and kicks for the time it took to eat a meal. Even when the sun was already high up in the sky, Yi Qingliao still stood in the distance and didn't move much. Naturally, no one could see who won or lost. But even so, the surrounding disciples were dumbfounded by what they saw. Last time when Zhang Xiaohua defeated Qingshi, to be honest, it was a bit of an unfair victory. She only relied on tricks and didn't have any real ability. Therefore, everyone was like Qin Fengxiao's prediction. They lowered their attention on Zhang Xiaohua again and again, thinking that there was nothing special about Zhang Xiaohua's martial arts. There were even some disciples who didn't know their place and had thoughts that they shouldn't have in their minds. Of course, there were even more disciples who placed their bets on the Dan division. They originally thought that the Dan division's 5 taels of gold would easily end the bet. But after fighting for almost half a day, it was actually a situation of neither winning nor losing. This frail grass division youth actually didn't fall behind by half a point. Yi Jingang is simple and honest. Maybe he didn't kill him and gave Ren Xiaoyao some face. Maybe Yi Jingang wants to exhaust Ren Xiaoyao's strength. When he runs out of strength, then wouldn't he be casually thrown out of the line? The people outside the line kept guessing. But just when everyone was guessing when Yi Qingliao would exert his strength and defeat Zhang Xiaohua, the situation on the field changed again. They saw Zhang Xiaohua once again leaping high into the air, her legs interlocking with Yi Qingliao's face. Yi Qingliao seemed to have already seen through Zhang Xiaohua's moves and wasn't nervous at all. He clenched his fists and punched out continuously, turning all of Zhang Xiaohua's attacks into nothingness. And when Zhang Xiaohua landed on the ground, it was as if she had stepped on something. Zhang Xiaohua's body was like an arrow leaving the bowstring, pouncing towards Yi Qingliao. And because Zhang Xiaohua didn't have a good grasp of her balance, her two hands were randomly grabbing at the air. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua baring her fangs and brandishing her claws, Yi Qingliao was stunned. Just when he was about to dodge, Zhang Xiaohua's two arms were already in front of him, grabbing at the place where his two arms were. Yi Qingliao didn't dare to be slow, afraid that Zhang Xiaohua had a trick up her sleeves. He also raised his arms to block Zhang Xiaohua. In a flash, for arms crossed together, Zhang Xiaohua very casually pushed Yi Qingliao's arms to the left and right, as if she was just randomly bumping into something. Could it be that this junior brother really fell down? At this time, Yi Qingliao naturally thought. Unfortunately, this was the only thought Yi Qingliao had before he woke up. He saw Zhang Xiaohua push Yi Qingliao's two arms apart, and her entire body was already in Yi Qingliao's embrace. Her head that was flying in front before Yi Qingliao could react hit his chest shan zhong point. Yi Qingliao couldn't catch his breath and fainted on the spot. And the initiator of this, Zhang Xiaohua, seemed to be dazed from the impact. Like Yi Qingliao, she fainted and fell straight to the ground. In an instant, the entire place was dead silent. Even the sound of breathing stopped. Everyone stared at the scene with their mouths agape. Then they looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. And it wouldn't be right if they didn't know what had happened. They probably didn't know why such a coincidental thing had happened. In the past 10 years of Tianmu Peak, such an incident had never happened before. Then, with a wung sound, thousands of flies rushed over at the same time. All the disciples were whispering to each other and discussing. The 5 consecrators, Pill Department's Wu Zhouxiu, the 9 Vajras, Qinfeng Shao, Qiu Wei Cheng, and the 6 Arhats all stood up with a zung sound. They all looked at the scene with complicated expressions. Knocking out the opponent was naturally the winner. But when 2 people fainted at the same time, who was the winner and who was the loser? This was really hard to say. When the rules were set, they never thought that such a situation would happen. Even after a few revisions, there were no new rules. However, they didn't dare to casually enter the arena. Disciples who weren't part of the battle were prohibited from entering the arena. If they entered the arena, they would be judged as the loser. And this battle involved 50 taels of gold, so no one dared to enter the arena. Therefore, just like this, after the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Wu Zhouxiu was the first to become impatient. He walked towards Consecrated Lei. In his opinion, since both of them had fainted together, it would be a draw. Anyway, Zhang Xiaohua was already injured. Although it was the 7 Vajras who entered the arena, Qi Yuntian should be able to take down Zhang Xiaohua. In this way, their pill department would only lose 20% of 100 taels of gold. But just as he took a step, he heard an earth-shattering cry from the grass department. When he looked up, he saw Zhang Xiaohua, who was lying there motionless, sitting up from the ground. She rubbed her head and looked at everything around her in confusion. Please vote for me, recommend me. -3. Chapter 554. Zhang Xiaohua sat up from the ground, very puzzled, as he looked around, then rubbed his head as if it hurts. Then he stood up, looked into the distance, and did something that no one on Tianmu Peak would have imagined. This guy walked to the side of Yi Qingliao, who fainted on the ground, lifted one of his legs from the ground, and like pulling a dead pig, dragged him to the side of the field. In an instant, the whole field returned to dead silence. Then, when everyone understood what Zhang Xiaohua meant, a burst of laughter resounded. The people of the grass division all laughed, constantly applauding. It seems that this guy also doesn't know whether he lost or won. Therefore, for the sake of insurance, it's better to drag him to the side of the line and see what the 5 judges decide. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua dragging Yi Qingliao out while panting, Wu Zhouxi sighed and stopped in his tracks. Originally, the 2 of them had fainted at the same time. After all, there was no such rule in the current rules, and there was no such precedent before. He went to the 5 consecrators, and for the sake of 100 taels of gold, he did not care about his face. It was also appropriate to make a draw, but he didn't expect that Zhang Xiaohua would wake up first. Oh, of course, even if he woke up, he might be able to make it a draw. However, he, like all the other disciples, did not expect that Zhang Xiaohua would do such a thing. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's tired appearance, Wu Zhouxi's heart was bleeding. Fine, why do I have to go to the elders? It doesn't matter who fainted first. As long as they leave the side of the line, they lose. This guy doesn't know other things, but he remembers this rule very clearly. Sigh, how is this dragging a dead pig? It's simply dragging gold home. The disciples of the pill division, opposite the grass division, could not stand it and also shouted loudly. What's the reason? Isn't it just to wake up the fainted Yi Qingliao? Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua sealed his acupoints. How can he wake up by himself? It seemed extremely impossible. Zhang Xiaohua pretended to be exhausted. She took a few steps to rest, and then took a few more steps to rest again. She thought to herself, this way I can finally act like it. I, Xiaoxia, am also a wise and powerful man. How can I? Ahem, for 50 taels of gold, I can do some acting for others. It's possible. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the sidelines, Qinfeng Xiao, who didn't know whether to laugh or cry, actually still had some confidence that Zhang Xiaohua could defeat Yi Qingliao, but he also never thought that Zhang Xiaohua would end up like this. Looking at Yi Qingliao behind Zhang Xiaohua with his eyes tightly closed, Qinfeng Xiao couldn't help but think, if Yi Qingliao, known as one of the 5 guardian deities, woke up now, how would he resist? He wondered how junior brother Ren would deal with it. We're already at the border. If Yi Qingliao wakes up and sees himself outside the border, how will he react? No matter how Chen Fengxiao thought, he immediately saw Yi Qingliao's expression. Zhang Xiaohua had already dragged Yi Qingliao to the side of the border. She put down Yi Qingliao's legs, walked to the other side of Yi Qingliao's body, and used her strength to flip him over bit by bit. After a few more rolls, Yi Qingliao's body just happened to cross the border. And at the same time that Zhang Xiaohua flipped him over, a wave of Jin Qi was sent over, unsealing Yi Qingliao's sealed acupoints. Then, as if nothing had happened, she clapped her hands and turned back to the field. Old Consecrator Lei and the other 4 judges also smiled bitterly as they watched Zhang Xiaohua like a hard-working ant, slowly pushing Yi Qingliao out of the field. When Yi Qingliao's body was out of the border, they immediately shouted at the top of their lungs, Tianmu Peak's 9th battle. Grass Division's Rin Xiaoyao wins. Just as this voice landed, Yi Qingliao, who was outside the border, also opened his eyes. Similarly, he looked around in confusion. When he heard old Consecrator Lei's announcement, his expression changed greatly. He hurriedly looked at the ground, and an expression of shock appeared on his face. His mouth was wide open, and he used his finger to point at Zhang Xiaohua, who had just walked far away. You this! Then he saw a long trail of dragging on the field. Thus he didn't say anything else, and just stood there dumbly. After a while, Yi Qingliao slapped his head hard and said regretfully, Why didn't I wake up a little earlier? If I woke up a little earlier, it would be enough to kick this guy out of the border. Sigh. That's right, why did he wake up early? Wu Zhouxi thought so, and so did everyone in the Dan division. At this time, old Consecrator Lei shouted again, Tianmu Peak's 10th battle is now ready to begin. Due to the fact that Grass Division's Rin Xiaoyao has gone up consecutively, according to the rules, the last disciple of the Dan division to go up is Qi Yuntian. Therefore, the 2 divisions' disciples, please place your bets now. Zhang Xiaohua stood in the field and when she heard Consecrator lay asking her to rest, she secretly shrugged and laughed secretly. Is there a need? I don't think it's necessary, but since the rules of the battle are so humane, then I should rest for a while. Zhang Xiaohua walked back to the grass division. From afar, Qin Fengxiao and Qiu Weicheng gave her a thumbs up. Qin Fengxiao laughed and said, "Little brother, I don't know how to praise you. It's really—" Qiu Weicheng, who was beside him, laughed. "It's really wise, and your luck is through the roof." Zhang Xiaohua shrugged again and said, "It's not wise, but my luck is through the roof." She then turned to look at the field and said, "I don't know who is so inconsiderate and doesn't care about our Tian Mu Peak's environment. He actually threw peels and confetti at such an important place. But if it wasn't for these peels, I wouldn't have been able to beat the 5th-ranked King Kong so easily. Beat the field." Qin Fengxiao couldn't help but laugh and said, "You dragged the field, okay?" And indeed, but this Yi Chengliao is really too heavy, heavier than half a piece of pork. Dragging him down is really difficult. Oh, little brother has dragged pork before? That's right, little brother's family is poor, and I have a relative who sells pork. When little brother was young, little brother worked for that relative. This business of dragging pork is very common. Ha ha ha! No wonder little brother's posture is so familiar. It's because you've already practiced before. Zhang Xiaohua only had one relative, Butcher Liu, who sold meat. However, he had never met Zhang Xiaohua, and he had worked at Butcher Liu's house for a day. Who the hell knew who this relative of his was? While chatting, Zhang Xiaohua inadvertently glanced at the pill division opposite him. It was abnormally lively there. When he took a closer look, he realized that they were all calling for disciples to place their bets. When he looked behind him, the grass division disciples also had strange expressions on their faces. They were peeking at him while secretly calling for bets. It was as if they were doing something that was condemned by their conscience. Could it be? Zhang Xiaohua seemed to understand. She pulled on Qin Fengxiao's sleeve and whispered, "Headmaster Qin, can I place my own bets?" "You're placing your own bets?" Qin Fengxiao frowned and naturally looked back. Those disciples who were placing their bets immediately retracted their hands and looked around in all seriousness, as if the matter of placing their bets had nothing to do with them. Qin Fengxiao obviously knew what they were thinking. He turned back and smiled. "Little brother, are you itching to place your bets after seeing others place their bets? Or did you see something wrong with our grass division disciples?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled. "The pill division disciples are very enthusiastic, but our disciples are all sneaky. Of course, I know they're betting on the pill division." Qin Fengxiao nodded and smiled. "That's right. Our bet is fair. The pill division and grass division are all disciples of the pill expanding hall. It's their freedom to place their bets. You don't have to take it to heart." "Why would I blame them?" Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. "I'm just asking if I can bet on this fight." "This." Qin Fengxiao thought for a while and said, "In order to maintain fairness and prevent disciples from cheating, the rules of Tianmu Peak prohibit disciples from placing bets. But what?" Zhang Xiaohua saw Qin Fengxiao's hesitation and could not help asking. "However, since little brother wants to participate, I'll place a bet on little brother's behalf. However, little brother, there are many people who bet on you losing this round. Even if you bet on yourself losing, the amount of pills you'll get in the end will be extremely small." Zhang Xiaohua waved her hands. "When did I say I'd bet on myself losing? What?" Qin Fengxiao was stunned. "You want to bet on yourself winning?" Then he persuaded, "Little brother, this is not the time to be swayed by emotions. Even if you want to regain your face, you don't have to go against all the disciples of Tianmu Peak. And, oh, I forgot, you've won enough today. Giving some to everyone can be considered a good deed. All right, little brother, I'll place a bet for you. If you lose, it's on me. If you win, it's on you. What do you think?" "Don't." "Head Qin, if that's the case, what kind of bet is this?" "It's your good deed. Win or lose, it's all on me." All right, I'll listen to you." Chen Fengxiao smiled. Then how many bottles of pills should I place? Or a few dozen taels of gold? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and stretched out one finger. 1 bottle? 10 taels of gold? Qin Fengxiao guessed. Zhang Xiaohua shook her head. Don't. Won't that be too much? The next, blood replenishing pill. Ah? Qin Fengxiao almost fell over. He couldn't believe it and asked, Just 1 blood replenishing pill? Yes. Anyway, they're all betting on the pill department to win. I'm only using 1 blood replenishing pill. If I win, won't all their bets be mine? And if I lose, this blood replenishing pill will be theirs to divide among themselves. This isn't too good. Qin Fengxiao was speechless. He thought to himself, You've won so much gold. Even if you lose, it's still a huge profit. I thought you wanted to show your grace to the disciples, but I didn't expect you to be so opportunistic. Qin Fengxiao only said, 1 pill can also be placed as a bet. But this doesn't seem to match little brother's status. Just based on the fact that little brother defeated Wu Yigong, you'll be a famous person in Tianmu Peak in the future. So it's like this. Zhang Xiaohua nodded thoughtfully. She gritted her teeth and said, Then let's place a bet of 2 blood replenishing pills. -3. Chapter 555. In an instant, Qin Fengxiao, the number 1 figure of Tianmu Peak, almost fainted. I have already told you clearly that these few pills are not worthy of your status. You still clenched your teeth. I thought you would take out at least 10 taels of gold. In the end, Sai, forget it. Just pretend that I don't know you. But betting on those few pills did not seem like something a headmaster like him could do. Hence, he raised his head to look. Of course, Qiu Wei-cheng, who had just come over to talk to Zhang Xiaohua, was also looking around like the other disciples of the grass division. He looked like he did not know anything and did not want to disturb him. Qin Fengxiao called out with a smile, Junior Qiu, Junior Qiu? Qiu Wei-cheng seemed to have just woken up from a dream. With a helpless expression, he turned around and asked, Headmaster Qin, what's the matter? Junior brother Qiu, don't play dumb. Go, in your name, according to little brother's wishes, bet 2 blood replenishing pills on little brother's victory. Headmaster Qin, this isn't appropriate. No matter what, I'm still your right-hand man. If you use such a wager, not only will you lose face for me, but you will also lose face for the headmaster. Qin Fengxiao waved his hand and said, I don't care. I will leave this matter to you. Do as you see fit. Then he pointed at Zhang Xiaohua and said, Our grass division brothers have sacrificed their lives for us. We cannot let him have any worries. You must settle this matter properly. Don't you think so, little brother? Zhang Xiaohua laughed and said to Qiu Wei-cheng, Sorry to trouble you, Senior Qiu. Little brother's family background is weak. I don't dare to mess around, hee. Qiu Wei-cheng's face was full of helplessness. Just as he was about to call the disciples to place their bets, his eyes suddenly lit up and he walked towards the side of the crowd. Of course, there was an excited Bai Huan sitting there. She was holding something in her hand and looked like she was about to place her bet. Seeing Qiu Wei-cheng walk over, Bai Huan quickly stood up to greet him. Qiu Wei-cheng whispered into Bai Huan's ear. Bai Huan looked unhappy and pulled Qiu Wei-cheng back. She pointed at the elixirs in her hand and then at the pill department. She looked a little ashamed. At this moment, Qiu Wei-cheng's face was full of righteousness. He pointed at Bai Huan's nose and scolded her, as if he expected better from her. Bai Huan's face was full of shame. She had no choice but to stretch out her hand. Seeing Bai Huan stretch out her hand, Qiu Wei-cheng was obviously stunned. He looked at Zhang Xiaohua, who was preparing in the distance. After thinking for a while, he took out a jade bottle from his arms, poured out 2 elixirs, and handed them to Bai Huan. He then turned around and walked back to Qin Fengxiao's side. When Qin Feng saw Qiu Wei-cheng return, he pretended not to see him. Zhang Xiaohua, on the other hand, was curious and asked softly, Senior Bai doesn't look too happy. Could it be that he's worried about his own reputation? Chiu Wei Cheng thought to himself, you know that your reputation is not good. Why did you ask us to help you place such a small bet? However, he still smiled warmly and said, Junior Brother Rin, don't think too much. Junior Bai doesn't care about his reputation. It's just that, looking at Zhang Xiaohua, he coughed twice and said, it's just that he placed his bet on Qi Yuntian of the pill department. According to the rules, one person cannot bet on two parties at the same time. Therefore, he probably wants others to bet on him. Zhang Xiaohua was very puzzled. Senior Chiu, I heard that there is something I don't understand. Since everyone placed their bets on Qi Yuntian of the pill department and no one placed their bets on me, how will they gain anything? Won't this bet be for nothing? Well, even though they will definitely win this bet, the most important thing is to participate. It's not bad to win once. Furthermore, in our gambling fight rules, to encourage betting, we will record the number of wins. If the number of wins increases, there will be a certain amount of preferential treatment. There are many specific details. In the future, Brother Rin will naturally know about it. So that's how it is. No wonder Senior Brother Chiu didn't bet on me. Zhang Xiaohua muttered thoughtfully. Hearing this, Chiu Wei Cheng's face immediately turned red. Zhang Xiaohua seemed to feel that what she said was wrong and quickly apologized. Senior Chiu, don't think too much. If you only bet on me, who will definitely lose, I would find it strange. Just now, I just said it casually. I didn't mean to blame you at all. If Senior Chiu goes up next time, I won't bet on you. Gosh, Chiu Wei Cheng's face turned even redder. He thought to himself, anyway, I won't have the chance to go up. Aren't your words useless? Furthermore, I haven't even gone up and you're already cursing me to lose. Are you doing this on purpose? However, he said, long live understanding, long live understanding. At this moment, old consecrator Lei shouted from afar, the auspicious time has arrived. New, cough cough, grass division Rin Xiaoyao. Pill division Qi Yuntian, please enter. Seeing the two of them walk slowly into the arena, old consecrator Lei then sat down and drank a mouthful of tea. He thought to himself, these days are not as good as when I was young as the master of ceremonies. How I miss the past, those beautiful times. Leaving aside old consecrator Lei's nostalgia, Zhang Xiaohua and Qi Yuntian walked into the arena together. Zhang Xiaohua stopped and looked at Qi Yuntian. Qi Yuntian didn't stop, but walked a dozen steps and stopped. Then he lowered his head and looked around. He even bent down to pick up some leaves and trash on the ground and threw them far away. Then he turned around to face Zhang Xiaohua. Looking at this middle-aged man who was as tall and thin as her, Zhang Xiaohua didn't understand. She could only follow her right hand and walk a dozen steps. She cupped her hands and said, I am Ren Xiaoyao from the Grass Division. Greetings to Senior Chiu from the Pill Division. Qi Yuntian's face was full of vigilance. He cupped his hands and said, Junior Brother Rin, you have great skills and a good plan. As your senior brother, I really admire you. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the place where they were just now. There didn't seem to be any scraps of fruit paper. She asked, why didn't Senior Brother Qi stand there just now? Qi Yuntian looked around and said in a low voice, Junior Brother Rin is thinking too much. This is the center of the arena. If I stood there, wouldn't I be disrespecting the battle with Junior Brother Rin? Ha 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 ha. Zhang Xiaohua understood and was secretly happy. Then, Zhang Xiaohua got into a fighting stance and said, if that's the case, then please give me some pointers, Senior Brother Qi. Then, she didn't hold back and raised her fist. Qi Yuntian didn't dare to be negligent and also came forward. So, the two of them stood together. But after the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, Zhang Xiaohua felt that something was wrong. Although Qi Yuntian's martial arts were a bit better than Cheng Shi's, but compared to Yi Qingliao's, he was still lacking. She should have no problem defeating him. But this guy was guarding the center of the arena. No matter how much she tried to lure him, no matter how many openings Zhang Xiaohua revealed, He would only chase after her a few steps and then immediately return to his original position. When Zhang Xiaohua attacked, he would only retreat a few steps. Looking far away, he would immediately use his qinggong to dodge around Zhang Xiaohua and return to his original position. He seemed to have decided, I won't leave the center of the arena. Let's see how you will lure me out. A moment ago, when Qi Yuntian came up, he had already cleaned up the surrounding trash. It would be difficult to find even a scrap of paper. This eliminated the possibility of Zhang Xiaohua accidentally bumping into him. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua sighed in her heart. This is going to be a very difficult battle. This difficult wasn't because of the opponent's martial arts, but because of how to defeat him without leaving any traces. AI. Looking at Qi Yuntian's cautious appearance, it was really difficult. Thus, the two of them were in a deadlock for a while. AI. That's because Zhang Xiaohua didn't have a good method, so it could only be a draw. While Zhang Xiaohua was thinking, another incense stick's worth of time passed. Zhang Xiaohua threw a punch at Qi Yuntian, using only 20% of his strength. If it was a moment ago, Qi Yuntian would have used his internal qi to block. But this time, Qi Yuntian dodged to the side and used his Qi Yuntian hand to cut Zhang Xiaohua's pulse. Zhang Xiaohua's left palm hit Qi Yuntian, but Qi Yuntian immediately retracted his attack. His body flashed. He didn't want to meet Zhang Xiaohua's attack head-on. Instead, he moved behind Zhang Xiaohua and raised his leg to attack his back. Zhang Xiaohua didn't turn around, but raised her leg to kick Qi Yuntian's leg. When Qi Yuntian saw this, he didn't meet the kick head-on. Instead, he flipped his body and changed direction in midair. He reached out to grab the back of Zhang Xiaohua's neck. This wonderful movement technique caused everyone to cheer. Seeing that Qi Yuntian didn't meet her attack, Zhang Xiaohua's eyes lit up. She had a plan. This Qi Yuntian's martial arts were about the same as Cheng Shi's, but his martial arts were ranked 7th. This was inseparable from his outstanding movement technique. Of course, this movement technique wasn't worth mentioning in Zhang Xiaohua's eyes. He was avoiding the main force and attacking the weak points. He probably knew that he couldn't defeat Zhang Xiaohua with his own moves, or that it would be very difficult to defeat her. Therefore, he chose to use his movement technique to exhaust Zhang Xiaohua's physical strength and internal energy. He wanted to achieve a stable and assured victory over Zhang Xiaohua. To Zhang Xiaohua, who had just fought 2 battles, this was a very appropriate and very wise strategy. Everyone outside the arena, including the 5 consecrators, Qin Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu, all had the same idea. However, the person he met was Zhang Xiaohua and not anyone else. These 2 gambling matches were just a show for this fellow, and he did not use up any of his strength or true qi at all. How could he be afraid of such a battle of attrition? However, it was also because of Qi Yuntian's change in tactics that Zhang Xiaohua found a breakthrough. And didn't you want to fight a battle of attrition? Then let's fight. This brother also has the same plan. Let's see who can outlast the other. Thus, Zhang Xiaohua slowly began to fight with Qi Yuntian. Of course, she couldn't fight with him so leisurely. So, Zhang Xiaohua was also panting. Her movements were sluggish and her footsteps were getting heavier. On the other hand, Qi Yuntian seemed to realize that his strategy was correct. His body became lighter and lighter, like a butterfly in spring. He surrounded Zhang Xiaohua. This Xiaohua. Fly, 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 fly nonstop. Unfortunately, after flying for a long time, Zhang Xiaohua was still panting. Qi Yuntian's body couldn't be as light as before and slowly slowed down. Nonsense! This movement technique also required physical strength and internal energy. Please vote monthly. Recommend vote. -3. Chapter 556. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but hesitate. Before entering the arena, Qin Fengxiao had already said a lot of things. His words were vague and pointed out, "Little brother, I arranged for you to be in the last 2 matches because I don't want you to win. Haha, don't completely win. Give the pill department some face." Pill department's face? Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but sneer. This face was given by Chun Fengxiao from the grass department, not by him. But compared to 50 taels of gold, was the pill department's face more important? It didn't seem to be important. But what about Chun Fengxiao's face? Zhang Xiaohua was a little conflicted. Should he win or not? Well, it depended on whether Chun Fengxiao's face or 50 taels of gold. Who was more important? It was as if he had returned to the Misty Peak when he participated in the second round of the martial arts exhibition. But needless to say, the difference between the current Zhang Xiaohua and the previous Zhang Xiaohua was like clouds and mud. Even Qi Yuntian, in terms of Qigong, might not be able to compete with that young disciple of the Misty School who had passed the first stage of the Misty School. That young disciple was a real disciple of the Misty School. This Qi Yuntian was just a disciple of the pill department of the pill expanding hall. He didn't even have the qualifications to be an outer disciple. However, Qi Yuntian, who had become a butterfly, didn't have the self-awareness. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua constantly gasping for breath, he thought that if he put in more effort, he would be able to defeat him. So he tried his best again and again. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua was like a wildflower in the wind and rain. He swayed left and right but did not fall, until Qi Yuntian suddenly realized that his already weak internal energy had dried up. Not to mention the fact that he couldn't use Qigong. He didn't even have the strength to stand and move his fists and legs. On the other hand, Zhang Xiaohua was still gasping for breath, just like before. Suddenly, a chill rose from the bottom of Qi Yuntian's heart. Could it be that this Zhang Xiaohua was a hidden master? Was he trying to lure him into a trap by putting on such a pathetic appearance? But then he thought again, what's the benefit of baiting me? If he's an expert, he can just knock me down directly. Either way, the outcome of the battle will be 50 gold taels worth of medicinal pills. I owe my medicinal pills. How many years of savings have I accumulated? The more he thought about it, the less strength he had left his body. After the time it took to eat a meal, Qi Yuntian sat down on the ground. He raised his hands and weakly shouted, I can't take it anymore. I admit defeat. After he said that, he lay on the ground like a dead pig, unable to move. And when Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she also immediately fell to the ground, motionless. She was actually exhausted. When Qi Yuntian admitted defeat, the entire Tianmu Peak was silent. It was even quieter than when Zhang Xiaohua knocked Yi Qingliao unconscious. Many people covered their mouths in disbelief, their eyes flashing with disbelief. That's right, they had the same thought as Qi Yuntian. This guy had already fought 2 rounds. Even if it was a battle of attrition, he would still be exhausted to death. But this Zhang Xiaohua was like a cockroach. From beginning to end, she was moaning, but in the end, she was still standing strong. Even if she fell to the ground, she would fall behind Qi Yuntian. Shady, it was unknown which disciple hysterically shouted out this slogan. Sure enough, he was not the only smart one. All the disciples loudly shouted, cheating, cheating, investigate thoroughly, investigate thoroughly. Seeing this, Qin Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu turned pale with fright. That's right, according to normal logic, the winner of this last round would definitely be Qi Yuntian. But what if Qi Yuntian had thrown the match? What if he had let people bet on Zhang Xiaohua's victory? Wouldn't he be able to win against everyone on Tianmu Peak? Then the benefits he would receive would be enough to make up for the 50 taels of gold he had lost against Zhang Xiaohua. Moreover, these 50 taels of gold pills were not from his own pocket. He had a secret agreement with Wu Zhouxiu. Thinking of these agreements, and looking at the agitated crowd, Wu Zhouxiu's expression was extremely ugly. At this moment, old consecrator Lei stood up with a sorrowful expression. He weakly announced, "The 10th battle, Ren Xiaoyao of the Grass Tribe wins." Then, looking at the other 4 consecrators beside him, he said, "This Tianmu Peak gambling competition ends now. Based on the current score, the Grass Tribe has won with 8 wins and 2 losses. Furthermore, They have received 60% of the 300 taels of gold from the Pill tribe. Pill tribe's Wu Dalong will promptly hand over this wager to head leader Qin of the Grass tribe. As for the winners and losers of each battle, they must also promptly hand over their 50 taels of gold or pills of equivalent value to the winner. If they do not hand it over within 3 days, the winner will be handed over to us for judgment. If they do not hand over their winnings, they will be given a double punishment. After saying this, he shouted again, "Disciples, please be patient. Our judgment will personally check the record of the last bet with Pill tribe's Wu Dalong and head leader Qin of the Grass tribe. If any disciple deliberately lost to the opponent, we will severely punish them." All right, the disciples all cheered. They all sat down and waited quietly. It seemed that they would definitely not leave today without a thorough investigation. Qi Yuntian, who was paralyzed in the arena, had already understood what was going on. He was filled with anger. Do I have to go this far? In order to win the 50 taels of gold, I begged Wu Dalong yesterday morning and borrowed quite a bit. If I could win, how could I lose to the opponent? That was 50 taels of gold. I'm not a fool. Furthermore, even if I cheated, how much more could it be than 50 taels of gold? Sigh. Zhang Xiaohua, who had closed her eyes and pretended to be exhausted, was overjoyed. She would soon know the results of her victory. Thinking back, she was still worried about how to find someone to cash out their winnings, afraid that someone would go back on their word. And this was great. Everything was announced to the public. Let's see who would dare to go back on their word. The speed of sorting out the records was very fast. Of course, with thousands of pairs of eyes watching, who would dare to be slow? But the result? It was really out of everyone's expectations. Out of the thousands of disciples from the Pill tribe and Grass tribe, there was only one person who bet on Zhang Xiaohua's victory. That was, of course, Bai Huan from the Grass tribe. Bai Huan? The consecrator who had once asked Bai Huan to lead the way to Zhang Xiaohua had a deep impression of him. He asked, head Qin, this Bai Huan wouldn't be carrying Qi Yuntian's bet, right? It seemed that the consecrators were well aware of the little tricks of the disciples below. Wu Zhouxiu also looked at Chen Fengxiao with a face full of doubts. Chen Fengxiao shook his head and said, "It seems that we have wronged Qi Yuntian. This Bai Huan definitely didn't bet on Qi Yuntian's behalf, because he bet on Rin Xiaoyao's behalf. Furthermore, I also know that this was a bet for 2 blood-replenishing pills, and it was Chiu Wei Cheng's pills." Sure enough, when old consecrator Lei looked at the back, there were indeed 2 blood-replenishing pills written at the back. This was something that Chen Fengxiao didn't see. Since he knew about it, it must be true. At the same time, everyone who heard this felt a sense of absurdity. Using 2 blood-replenishing pills to win against thousands of people in the field, even if it was 2 blood-replenishing pills per person. Such a small bet was still 2,000 pills. It was much more than 50 taels of gold. Hiss! Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu both sucked in a breath of cold air as if they had a toothache. They were incomparably regretful. If I also bet a little, wouldn't I have a share of these 2,000 pills? If I bet 10 taels of gold, these 2 blood-replenishing pills can be ignored. Wouldn't the 2,000 pills all be mine? But this Ren Xiaoyao was obviously going to lose. How could I have known that in the end he would actually win? Since the result was out, it naturally had to be announced. However, no one believed this result. In the end, they could only let the various people send their own representatives up to witness it with their own eyes. Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu also patted their chests solemnly, assuring that there was no problem with this record. Only then did they manage to suppress the crowd's emotions. That's right, since the beginning of the gambling matches on Tianmu Peak, who knew how many matches there had been? There had also been gambling matches with great disparities in strength, but none of them had been as coincidental as today. Everyone had bet on Qi Yuntian, who was sure to win, and only Zhang Xiaohua had bet on herself. Oh no, only Bai Huan had bet on the Grass Division disciple. Well, after the disciples of the Pill Division and the Grass Division knew the result, Those who didn't know Bai Huan secretly tried to find out who was called Bai Huan. Their tone was extremely unfriendly, and those who knew Bai Huan shot murderous glances at Bai Huan. In an instant, Bai Huan's brilliance immediately overshadowed the victorious Zhang Xiaohua. Seeing the strange looks from the crowd, Bai Huan felt uncomfortable. I'm innocent. I bet on the pill division myself. This bet was placed on someone else's behalf. But now, even if he was given 10 more guts, would he dare to say that it was Head Master Chen's instructions? Not to mention that this would immediately make Zhang Xiaohua the target of public criticism. Moreover, what if Head Master Chen used Zhang Xiaohua's name to win? Bai Huan shuddered. It was as if he could see himself being beaten and killed on a moonless and windy night. At this time, Qi Yuntian had just finished resting and recovered a bit of strength. Seeing that his grievances had been cleared, there was no reason for him to stay on the ground. He got up and walked in front of Zhang Xiaohua. "Junior brother-in, congratulations on winning the last round." Zhang Xiaohua was lying on the ground, still looking like he was about to die. He stretched out his hands lazily and said, "Senior brother Qi, thank you for letting me win. Actually, I didn't expect to win in the end. I just thought that if I let out a breath, the 50 taels of gold would be given to someone else. I didn't dare to vent my anger. I didn't expect Senior Brother Qi to be the first, seeing that Zhang Xiaohua didn't have any strength, and hearing him mention the 50 taels of gold. Qi Yuntian couldn't help but want to go up and kick him. You're already like this when you came up, and you're still like this now. Are you done yet?" Qi Yuntian suppressed his anger, cupped his hands, and walked away. Seeing that there was no need to pretend, Zhang Xiaohua stood up shakily. At this time, Qin Fengxiao came over and helped Zhang Xiaohua up. He smiled and said, "Little brother is really talented. Do you want to know how much you won in the last round?" Zhang Xiaohua's eyes lit up and he asked, "It's all because of Head Master Chen's guidance. I have to thank Tuidan Hall, Tianmu Peak, and the Grass Sect. Well, I also have to thank Chuanxiang School for giving me this opportunity. -3.